enemies of Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 are a criminally, in fact no, the criminally overlooked and underdiscussed part of this gigantic grand cosmic duology. A pair of games that have been talked about to death online and picked apart for every morsel of nostalgic video essay and iceberg explained content they have. But the enemies... The enemies are barely talked about for some reason, despite being such a huge part of the games. They breathe life into Galaxy. They're the glue that sticks this world together. Galaxy has an incredible triple-digit enemy roster, brimming with character and charm and one-off bizarre novelty, as trust me, we are going to see plenty of today. From the Fizzlets and the Snoodles to the Octo Guys and the Jacko Goombas to the giant Gringills and cosmic clones to the Titanic Magmargs and Womps and Silver Chomps to the f***ing Kleptones and every other returning classic, random oddball and Galaxy original anomaly in between. Yep, all 126 of them. Holy unemployment. Yeah, all 126 of these things evaluated, critiqued, assessed, and ranked on this here tier list, which I have constructed myself. Cataloging this sprawling enemy roster, which we are about to go through one by one. But wait, it does feel like something's missing. Is this enough for you? YouTube algorithm, is this enough? Just do the tier list. Just do the tier list. Beginning with, of course, the Goomba. The humble, waddling, ferocious little shroom splattered all over the Galaxy games, just as he is the entire franchise. This little guy is the glue that holds together so many areas, and he's just the perfect filler enemy for any time and place. A joy to jump on and squash in classic fashion, or now to belt around with a spin attack, taking 2 hits from said spin attack and 1 from a stomp as per usual, which will always work because the stomp requires the more precise movement of the two, and so should reward you more, whereas the spin attack is easier to just throw out haphazardly with little consequence for missing. And they are also the single most common recurring enemy in Galaxy, and yeah, I'm completely fine with that. They're Goombas. They are low-key just built for this shit, so you know, nothing innovative or revolutionary here whatsoever, but fundamentally, a La Goomba will always work. You know, they're pretty fun to take out. It fills up some empty space, and you can just waltz right on past if you so please. So, upper end of B, probably. And next up, we have the Mecha Koopas, or actually Micro Mecha Bowsers, as I believe they're called here. So, these are the trundling miniature mechanical minions bolted and fastened together in the image of Bowser, much like the ultimate heavy metal Mecha Bowser of their debut mission, which they also patrol and defend in numbers. Their method of attack being a plume of fire they spit out after closing the distance between you, stunnable with a spin attack and able to be deactivated at any time with a ground pound for 1 humble coin. And these guys are just fun little bumbling robo fellas. Obliterating them with a ground pound from miles above with a spring mushroom will never not be super satisfying, if a bit finicky to land, and their little eyes bouncing around their sockets is pretty charming, but they are kind of slow to act, and you can just steamroll through or completely avoid them without consequence most of the time. So, you know, they're a solid foot soldier type enemy, I guess. They do feel right at home in toy time, so yes, strong C tier, probably a high C tier. And so next up we have the Urchin, with Galaxy's interpretation of them seeing them both underwater and on wet land as they roll around, hoping to impale and damage you with their countless deadly blunted orange spikes. Usually bowling around in the seafloors and basins of marine galaxies in clusters, or in the chilling chambers of Freeze Flame Galaxy, providing a set of shifting, shuffling hitboxes to avoid and jump over as you traverse the area, before coming back to torch through them with the Fire Flower. Now honestly, I was really surprised at how many galaxies these guys actually do appear in, because I only ever remember their Freeze Flame appearance, because they are usually just lurking in the bottommost gutters of whatever body of water they're placed in, which, much like the Clam, which we'll see soon, while perhaps not seeming like much, does still go a long way to fill out these underwater environments with a bit more life and color. Like, yes, without this singular lone Urchin, Sea Slide Galaxy would have been a desolate wasteland. But with it, it's a paradise. As well as the shoals of photorealistic fish to swim alongside them, of course. But yeah, they are just solid, vibrant, fun enough enemies that you can't just mindlessly waltz through, so probably a mid B tier for me. Seems steep, but you know, I think they work well. Not Goomba level though, just below the Goomba for now. And next up is the Spoing. So the Spoings I really have no clue how to feel about. In isolation, they are just super mediocre in my opinion, and the designs I am not a fan of. They just feel awkwardly put together, and their heads particularly come off like some weird fleshy thing that wraps back in on itself into a shadowy, hollow interior. Like, what is this supposed to be? A hood or a head or what? I don't know. And moveset wise, all they do is jump in place when you approach them, which is just fine. I actually find them pretty fun to take out, but I came into this ranking with a prejudice against that as well. But I do have to admit, in the Tyrantox's Tangled Web mission, which is their most contextually relevant appearance as I guess the lesser grown spawn of Tyrantox, they are superb. The later planetoids are crawling with them, and instantly this creepy, cruelly unnerving, intense alien arachnid vibe is nailed here. They make for a great build up to Tyrantox with the tense music as well, and there is just something about them that I like, and I genuinely don't know what it is. They just feel right. Spin attacking through them just feels so right, despite rationally seeming pretty mid to me in every other context. I guess they are just effective aesthetic tools for ghostly and spooky settings. I don't know, honestly. This could change later, but I'm feeling a very high C or low B. High C for now, I think. So who's next? Okay, next is the Amp, which is one of the simplest enemies in the game, both mechanically and aesthetically. It is this small jet black electrified orb that hovers around a fixed circuit. It's unkillable without a rainbow star and zaps you for 1 health point on contact, functioning more or less like a stage hazard, to be honest, with the only semblance of any character or sentience here being its static smiling red face, which I guess does enough to keep this out of a tragically low ranking. And just simple moving hitbox entities are probably a necessity to a 3D platformer, so its existence is kind of inevitable, I guess. It's just the definition of forgettable mediocrity. It does force you to plan out your movement a bit more than otherwise, but yeah, so does almost every enemy, you know. I'll put this in D tier. It serves a mundane purpose, I guess. And next up, we have the ground urchin. So these function exactly the same as the marine urchin, bar of course an aesthetic and contextual difference. These are the red fuzzed, piping hot volcano-dwelling fiery counterparts to the urchin, appearing in hordes in the blistering core of Freeze Flame Galaxy, where I think they work unbelievably well. I already have a soft spot for this specific area, this ancient ruin submerged between 2 mirrored ceilings of molten lava, and the ground urchins absolutely swarm any substantial piece of land in this place, even pouring out of this spawner from I guess their nest or subterranean dwelling here, where initially you have to carefully tiptoe and hop around them as they roll towards you, giving you no time to stand still and demanding some actual urgency in traversing the area before you arm yourself up with the fire flower to then scorch and blaze your way through their ranks, even having this unique animation when being burnt as they crisp up into a charred, brittle husk. Honestly, just rampaging through this section, fireballs just volleying out of your palms as you tear your way through hordes of ground urchins is a blast. And I guess the same goes for their, albeit much shorter lived, appearance in Battle Belt Galaxy and Galaxy 2, as well as this ground urchin in the Boo in a Box area in Deep Dark Galaxy, who once again forces some real urgency on you and makes for a nice little duo fight with the Boo, stopping you from just staring straight at the Boo at any given moment to rest or recuperate. So yeah, that's probably the most detailed piece of discussion any of us will ever hear about the fucking ground urchins. Yeah, for me, it does genuinely place very high. Definitely an A tier, maybe even pretty high up into A tier, I think. But we'll see as more enemies join it. And next up, we have the Tweesters. So Dusty June's Tweesters are these googly-eyed, skull, bone, and debris-twisting tornado enemies spinning around, obstructing your path across the obstacle course of Dusty June's ultimate giant sandy disk planet. Kind of just being a nuisance here, as touching them will sweep you up into their current for a bit, stealing some time and allowing you to take off into the sky to fly down at a sluggish pace. And the last 2 Tweesters, for what it's worth, have 2 spiked rocks flying around them, meaning they do actually damage you if you touch their sides. But yeah, it's pretty easy to just speed right past these guys still, but It's an acceptable boost to their threat level, I suppose. And I honestly do not like using the tornadoes in Galaxy, so these are simultaneously a welcome, endearing characterization of the otherwise bland tornado, and still a kind of tedious to use same old tornado mechanically. Mid-C, I guess. And next up, we have the Bonefin. So these are another Galaxy 1 one-off enemy in the purest form, appearing only in one planet of one star of one galaxy, actually in one encounter in the entire duology. They are the heat-seeking, red-eyed, metallic, robotic spawn of the skeletal behemoth Kingfin, who he summons from within the bubbling, burning depths of his planet in swarms as they patrol these abyssal waters beside him, chasing down and homing in on the player as they approach. Now, the Bonefins don't home in on you that sharply and aren't as much of a threat as I would like them to be, but they are definitely going to get close to you. They are definitely going to force you to at least rethink your approach or change route once or twice, emitting this tense beeping radar sound as they close in on you, which only adds to the pressure of the encounter. Weaving in between them, Koopa shell in hand as they come missiling past you before firing your shot off at their king is super satisfying, and they're a big factor in making this mission so tense and memorable. So yeah, I think a high B tier for me, possibly lower A. Yeah, maybe lower A. They do Kingfin a lot of favors in my opinion. And next we have the friendliest, least threatening member of the Thwomp family. We have the Bomp. This one less focused on crushing and more focused on pushing. The Bomp is this heavy, chubby-faced stone cuboid you can find periodically protruding from and retreating back into walls, where you have a limited amount of time to either use them as a platform to clamber up onto to advance, or to quickly scurry past before he pushes back out to obstruct your path or knock you off the stage. And the Bomp is an endearing, inoffensive enemy slash stage element hybrid being. You know, I like to wonder who actually made these things as well. Like, is there some freelance intergalactic stonemason who crafts and carves these things to be installed into different galaxies? They are perfectly slotted into the walls they appear in. It's clearly by design. Did Baron Burr pay to have these installed into his mountain as defense measures or something? If so, how does their creator imbue them with life? Are they alive or are they mechanical? Like, are they some clockwork creation? Same goes for the rest of the Thwomp family, whom we will see much more of later. But yeah, for now, the Bomp is a pretty fun characterization again of what would have otherwise just been a simple moving stage part, adding personality to the mundane, probably cashing in a bit higher than it really should for me with a very low B tier. And next up we have the Crabbers, the red and blue Crabbers. So we'll start with the red Crabbers. So the red Crabbers are the more abundant and aggressive half of the Crabber duology. These scuttling, red-shelled, pincered little crab enemies who scurry towards you, making sure they're always facing you with their invulnerable armored front as they do so, where you must spin attack and momentarily stun them to then get around to their exposed back for a finisher. And honestly, I love the Crabbers, both red and blue, and it is little enemies like these who, spread across several galaxies, are the lifeblood that holds together the liveliness of this world. Not to mention, they are actually just pretty fun to engage with. Getting around to their soft spot or bulldozing through them with a rock mushroom is a blast. They are just a solid iteration of the average little waddling foot soldier grunt enemy category for 3D Mario. So yeah, I think high B for me. The red one probably just under the Goomba, but let's get to the blue. So yeah, now we have the blue Crabber, the rarer turquoise shelled avoidant half of the Crabber duology, who in their more sparse appearances will do their best to scuttle away from and retreat from Mario, posing less of a threat and more of a little cat and mouse minigame, rewarding you handsomely with a 1-up once you've gotten a hold of them, which really isn't all that difficult and time consuming, but I don't mind that. My only gripe with the Crabbers is they stay exposed after a jump or spin attack too long, to the point sloppy timing of the follow-up attack is rarely punished, but still, another funny crab. I'd probably slightly prefer it for being that bit trickier to defeat, so yeah, just above at the tip of B tier for now, I think. Very good enemy. And next up are the Pup Dozers. So the Pup Dozers are these kind of weird plodding, spiked dinosaur creatures inhabiting and being entirely built around the main gimmick of Flipsville Galaxy's first mission, flip-flopping in Flipsville, where they stomp forwards and backwards over the grates you use to traverse either side of the stage, defeating them by ground-pounding back through one as they walk over or under it in preparation for the ultimate test of that same gimmick with Glamdozer's masterful encounter later on. And these guys are just, they're just okay for me. I'm completely neutral on their design, and their whole gimmick, I guess, is fun and novel enough, but also just feels a bit slow and boring to have to wait around for them to pass over the grates. And once you've fought one, you've kind of fought all of them. You know, it's kind of repetitive, but not too much to their detriment. So I don't know, I don't have too much to say about the Pup Dozers. They're probably just a low C for me. Pretty ambivalent towards them, in all honesty. And next up is the Micro Goomba. So honestly, I don't know why these exist. They are literally the Goomba, but worse. They are now defeated instantly by spin attacks, and obviously also again by stomps. So yeah, that's it mechanically. And aesthetically, they are just squatter, shorter, blander Goombas. Like, these are literally just inferior chud versions of the already fairly unremarkable and disadvantaged, but at least iconic base Goombas. And a part of me wants to bump them up a bit for the sake of them providing some further variety in the Goomba family, but they are just an arbitrary, forgettable, admittedly inoffensive inclusion to the enemy roster, but yeah, they're kind of just fucking worthless, I'm gonna be real with you. They appear in a ton of galaxies too, but I still couldn't have told you a single one they actually do appear in off the top of my head, other than, I guess, Gateway Galaxy. But yeah, mid to high D tier for this strange Goomba homunculus. And next is, oh boy, next is the Smooch. So let it be known, there is a special place in hell for the Smeeches, and I mean the deepest pits of brimstone and hellfire. Because what even are these things? Some sort of winged, fluttering, rosy-cheeked, plump-lipped ball of pink gunk that try their best to escape you as Mario or Luigi, but rush as fast as they can to just violently kiss and latch onto Yoshi should you be riding him anywhere near them. Kind of just being a pest you need to then shake off to be able to do anything, and yeah, that's the Smeeches. Always a shame to run into one of these things, and they are a worthy, unholy successor to the already off-putting and uncomfortable feeling poinks of Mario Sunshine. But yeah, not a fan of the Smeeches. One of very few enemies I never want to interact with. So, and I hate their design. F tier for sure. F tier for sure. F tier. But on a completely different note, next up we have the Chomps. Okay, so here's why I love Galaxy's chainless Chomps. They are big, indestructible, heavy, jet black steel balls, crushing and steamrolling their way through set paths. And 99% of the time encountering them, you are just forced into their world. This is their path. You are trespassing. Now decide whether you want to commit to carefully maneuvering around this thing, or to hurry and escape from its path of destruction. They are unable to be argued with, unable to be defeated, and only survived as they march down cramped corridors and narrow tightwalks, mandating precise timing and jumping, or they roll rings around small planets, denying any sort of sloppy movement, or actually have their paths depend on how you are manipulating the stage for your own traversal in Flip Switch Galaxy, for example. But like I said, that's 99% of the time encountering them, not the other slither of instances where you are imbued with the godlike powers of the Rainbow Star, and you can yourself bulldoze and smash through them, bursting into star bits and being a pure dumb joy to just blast through. And yeah, I think the Chomps are the best instance of just moving hitbox enemies by far, and complement the environments they are in the best of any enemy like that, not to mention their iconic, cool, sleek design. So yeah, the regular chainless Chomp is a deserving S for me. Ordinarily an untamable beast, but every now and again offering you the joy of rolling right through them. yourself. And next is the Galactic Tornado. So the actual tornado stage elements in Dusty June and Melty Monster are apparently enemies called Galactic Tornadoes, which goes unexpectedly hard for what was to me just an ordinary, acceptable, forgettable tornado. These things will pace side to side, able to be jumped into to get sucked in and propelled upwards dramatically in a swift vertical boost. I actually do, I guess, find pretty fun, where you then become a human helicopter and slowly, boringly drift down through the air. And honestly, not sure what to say here. I mean, yeah, these are tornadoes. Galactic tornadoes, sorry. So yeah, they do the job. Zero personality on these things, and they are just a means to an end. Low C, I guess. Kind of fun to use, maybe. And next in line are the Jammy Fish and the Jam-O-War. So the two jellyfish inhabitants of Mario Galaxy, appearing in the depths of Big Mouth, Deep Dark, and on a lighter note, Cosmic Cove Galaxy. The Jammy Fish, the smaller, cutesier, ghostly, glowing pale jellyfish found swimming around in synchronized rings or dotted around guarding the path forward, defeatable rather simply with a spin attack forward in exchange for a coin. And the Jam-O-War being the rarer again giant bioluminescent jelly behemoth, twinkling and pulsing with color as it slowly inches towards Mario to electrify him. Now, I do like both of these things. They have their pros and cons for sure. I mean, the Jammy Fish work great in these dark abyssal depths, lighting up your path like ghostly lanterns, again adding life to these areas and offering you something more to engage with. I do find spinning into them very satisfying, but they won't aggro onto you at all and are overall a bit too passive in my opinion. But for what they're worth, I'll take these guys over fucking bloopers any day. And the Jam-O-War acts great as a kind of mini set piece, breaking up the mission with this brief but memorable moment of awe as you stumble upon this unusually large faceless creature. They're way more intimidating and mesmerizing, but that facelessness does also work against it, with it feeling a bit more generic and lacking the personality or character I'd like in a Mario enemy. Not to mention how badly it under-rewards you with just a single coin or a few star bits if you go through the toil of green shelling it twice to defeat it, which, I mean, come on, at least they could have given us is a one-up. You know, look at the size of this thing. But yeah, complaints aside, I do like both these things, and just another splash of color and more to engage with in underwater sections, so I'll put the Jammy Fish a bit higher up into C tier than the Jam-O-War, who will place more to the middle of it, I think. Which brings us onto the Magmarks. So these are the titular melty monsters of Melty Monster Galaxy. These absolutely giant lava serpent dragon beasts, almost looking like giant sock puppets actually, that emerge out of lava every so often to wade into the foreground with a massive molten chomp. Now these molten chomps are super heavily telegraphed, and there's a big cooldown time between them for you to just speed right past them. But in areas like the Bowser's Galaxy Generator Snake Block section, where they pop up parallel to your path, they work great as just an emergency jump scare, forcing you to immediately rethink your path forward. They demand respect and are definitely some of the most awesome and obviously huge, intimidating enemies in Galaxy. I just wish they were a bit faster in their main home galaxy and not so easily breezed past, but still, they are a great, memorable enemy. They can sort of just place highly off the back of their objective dumb cool factor alone, but I still think they do work, so a mid to low A for me, I think. And next up, on a slightly smaller scale, is the Digger. So all over Spin Dig Galaxy's dirt planetoids, you encounter the yellow-plated diggers drilling around underground, half their body above surface able to be stomped on and crushed for a coin. The mass-deployed units of some sort of mining operation here alongside Diggerleg, who itself employs their excavating abilities as peons in his boss fight. And the Diggers are just a great, simple, satisfying to squash little enemy, tailor-made for Spin Dig Galaxy. In 2D sections, they're a must to get rid of, as their drill tips can actually catch you on a bad landing, and in 3D, they're just another roving hitbox to crush as you drill around these hollowed planetoids. So yeah, it's a good enemy in my opinion. It actually feels like one of the more iconic frontrunners of Galaxy 2's roster, and yeah, just a nice, simple, vibrant design. So yeah, upper C, low B, I'd even be tempted for a very low B, but yeah, you gotta love the Diggers. And next is the Bat. So yeah, yeah, this is a bat. A pudgy, pig-nosed, bright-eyed bat you'll find hanging from trees or cave ceilings, waiting for you to approach so they can descend from their slumber, sweeping down onto Mario to attack him in droves, flapping around and screeching between each pounce. And I'd say it is pretty satisfying to snipe these guys out of the sky with a well-aimed starbit, or just stomp and spin attack them as they come swooping down. So yeah, that's it. These are bats. A welcome, albeit kind of formulaic and expectable bat enemy, so mid to high C tier, which leads us onto the big amp. So this does two things to the classic amp. One, it's bigger. That's a positive. It's a bigger hitbox and therefore a more threatening obstacle and therefore a more engaging enemy. But two, it removes the face. This is a negative. It's now a totally soulless black orb, devoid of even a shred of its previous Mario whimsy. So yeah, style points are sub-zero here, but it is a more engaging hazard, like I said. Kind of frustratingly though, I feel like it only really catches me out when I'm getting muddled around and disorientated by the controls running around really tiny planets, which they are often orbiting, but still probably just about on par with the regular amp. Could go either way, but I think its greater threat level warrants it a spot just above. So next up we have the Lil Burr, and might as well throw in the Lil Cinder while we're at it. They're essentially the same, you know, one's ice, one's fire, one freezes you, one burns you. With the Lil Burrs being the underlings of Baron Burr, who populate the layers of his frosty peak, and the Lil Cinders being the underlings of a fiery counterpart to the Baron that I guess we've never got to see. Both bobbing through the air to approach and catch you with their respective elemental affliction, being extinguishable with a spin attack where you can then kick and shatter them to defeat them before they manage to hop and roll back into the ice or fire they emerged from to reignite themselves. And I can't quite explain what it is, but these two are they're just goated. Like, the Lil Birds have always been super memorable to me despite only appearing in a handful of galaxies, and the Lil Cinders are of course just a variant of them. So defeating them is a seamless, satisfying two-step process. They are just great enemies gluing together their respective home galaxies, and I can't really find a fault with them. They are just solid Galaxy original enemies. So yeah, I think a reservation somewhere in A tier definitely awaits them. I am a big Lil Burr and Cinder fan. The Lil Burrs being my favourite of the two for their deep and elaborate lore connection to Baron Burr, of course, and they're just a bit more memorable for me. Which brings us on to the two Gringills, the regular Gringill and the big Gringill. So here's what I'm thinking about the Gringills. These smaller ones, they're just fine. You know, functionally, I don't think they're that great when emerging out of their caves. They're kind of just too small to be a threat, and the googly eyes are more goofy than they are creepy on these smaller bodies. But when they appear freely swimming, especially in Drip Drop Galaxy, where hunting them down is the objective of the mission, they are way better, in my opinion. Having a tankier, more elusive enemy to patrol these underwater sections is a nice change of pace, and taking each one out with a shell is really just a fun time. But the big Gringills are very good in my opinion, and I can tell because I hate engaging with them, as in their vastly greater size, now more proportionate but still oversized dilated eyes and gnashing teeth feel like the makings of some burrowing alien parasite. I always just want to get away from these vile things as soon as I can, which for once I will rate them highly for, since I imagine that was their intention here. Create an enemy to jump out and terrify the player, but force them to face their fears, as they often guard key items or obstruct unavoidable paths, making for a small rush of adrenaline as you just barely dash through their biting maws, as well as a much larger hitbox, making them a much more threatening enemy too, of course. So yeah, regular Gringill is kind of mediocre, but has its shining moments for me, so maybe like lower to mid C tier, and big Gringills are a great, intimidating addition, so probably a mid B tier for them, I think. Mid to upper? Yeah. Mid to upper. And next up we have another classic. Next up is the Piranha Plant. So yeah, Galaxy's iteration of the common Piranha Plant is just a simple, solid, good fodder enemy. You'll find them planted in flower patches and pipes, throwing their heads forward in a gnashing chomp every few seconds to try and catch you with, often guarding sproutle vines that you need to advance the stage, making defeating them mandatory, which is a painless, fun enough process. Simply spin attacking or stomping them will do the trick. So yeah, pretty standard fun, and vibrant stationary enemy, done and dusted in a few satisfying seconds. So I'm feeling a high C tier, a great enriching addition to any lively floral setting. And next up we have the Ball Beamer and the Bolt Beam, which are these golden bolts and screws you encounter fastened into either pole of a planet, which blast out shockwaves in bursts of 3, with the screw variation being able to be unscrewed by a spin attack and the bolted variation unable to be directly damaged. So yeah, these definitely work. They definitely fulfill their purpose. They generate shockwaves. Shockwaves force you to jump. This is a 3D platformer. You are Jumpman. This is fundamentally compatible with the core mechanics of Galaxy, and the shockwaves do come out frequently enough to keep you on your toes. Its appearance in Deep Dark Galaxy is easily its best, functioning here as a complement to the bizarre like watermelon fusing minigame of this planetoid, adding challenge to something else you are focused on, making for a more engaging multitasking encounter. But these are visually an uninteresting golden wad of metal. It barely appears and only shines as a secondary attention demanding factor to something else. So for what they are, two pretty average C tiers, with the screwless one placing one above, I think, for being a threat for longer, I guess. And so next up we have, okay, have you heard of this guy? Next up we have the Lil Springy. So a set of 4 Lil Springies appear dotted throughout the winding catacombs of Boo's Boneyard Galaxy, moving side to side, acting as obstacles to bounce you back and knock you out of your momentum during your race against the spooky speedster, causing you to lose precious seconds should you fail to swerve around them. They really aren't too hard to avoid, but I guess a basic bumper obstacle is probably just inevitable for a course like this, and I guess giving them a pair of eyes is more interesting than not giving them a pair of eyes. I don't know, it is cool just how obscure and unknown these guys are, appearing only in brief passing during one single optional mission, but I don't want to abuse and wear out the obscure / novel equals good talking point, so, you know, they are just kind of here. Pretty annoying to get hit by, actually, so this could be harsh, but probably an E tier. It's E or D. And E tier is kind of empty right now, so I'm sorry, Lil Springy. Spring your eye into E tier, bro. And next are the Twirlips. So the Twirlips, for as rare and small an inclusion they are, I like a lot. I really like the Twirlips. I think they are just a really neat, fun enemy with a unique and fun to engage with move scheme. So the Twirlips are these white flower bud enemies that rest idly in this closed up state, who then move around by unfurling into an open vulnerable flower, spinning around rapidly, offering a super satisfying target to jump on, as well as a punishing slicing hitbox around itself if you mess up your approach. So yeah, the Twirlips are just solid, nicely designed, dynamic, elaborate for what small scale they operate in enemies that I think are a great enemy to just chuck into any section that needs a bit more life in it. They're very satisfying to squash mid-flower transformation, and I wish we saw these little things more often. So yeah, upper B tier. And next on the agenda is, okay, I'd like to take a moment to remind you this is a subjective video. Next is the Thwomp. So I hate to say this, I've never been that much of a Thwomp guy. I don't mind them. I do think they're alright, but nothing really special to me, at least in Galaxy. I do think I prefer them in the 2D games, for example. But yeah, in Galaxy, like all other games, the Thwomps appear fixed in different points above the ground, where they will shake for a moment, breaking from their usual stoic slumbering faces before slamming directly downwards into the ground with a furious expression, before hovering back up to their position to repeat the process every few seconds or for as long as you remain close enough. The Thwomps this time around with bluntly tipped spikes for a more absolute flattening capability, I suppose. And they are just a timing test. Plonk one of these into a Galaxy and you've got a mini blockade demanding of trespassers the ability to stand still for a second, wait, identify when the giant heavily telegraphed stone face isn't going to slam down and kill them, and then hop on through. I don't know, I've just never found the Thwomps to be too interesting to encounter here. They're kind of like traffic lights to me. You just get to them, you wait for a second, and then you pass them. You know, for me, they just grind momentum down to a halt. But then again, it is cool when stuff's hidden on top of them and whatnot, and they are a staple of the series. It is cozy and familiar to see them here, so I don't know, nothing too harsh for the Thwomp, but they are kind of whatever to me. Maybe an upper C tier. Yeah, probably an upper C tier, right? It is the Thwomp. But next up, staying in the Thwomp family, is the Tox Box, the most bizarre looking member of the Thwomp collective here. The Tox Box takes form as a large hollowed out stone cube that rolls around set paths tile by tile, slamming one of its faces down with each advancement. Its one faceless side and empty yawning mouth able to be sought refuge in, most infamously appearing in the Stone Cyclone, where in its 2 speedy comets it becomes a rampaging killing machine, slamming down rapidly and relentlessly, basically promising you a crushing insta-kill without precise timing, planning, or slowing it down. And yeah, I think it's a super engaging enemy. It forces you to really plan out your path forward to avoid its absolute punishment, while also offering a safe haven in 1 or 2 specific tiles along its path. And they have had a radical redesign visually since their debut appearance in Mario 64, going from more rudimentary red industrial cubes with faces spray painted onto, to these now intricately carved stone cubes, way more in line with the Thwomp family, which makes total sense given the shared affinity for crushing and flattening. And it makes for one of the most interesting Galaxy designs in my opinion, with each face being readable both upside down and upright, looking disgruntled and upset or angry and snarling depending on which way up it is. So yeah, overall a great enemy, genuinely one of the deadliest in Galaxy when sped up. Maybe they can be frustrating to begin with, but never unfair feeling for me, so I genuinely think a mid-A is in order here, or upper A for now, but probably mid as more enemies coming. And next are the Snoodles. So the Snoodles, who I am actually going to rank fairly high up into like mid B tier, I think. They are these bioluminescent tube worm plant creatures lining the insides of underwater caverns who awake from their slumbers to try and blockade your path as you approach them, able to be killed by shining the front headlight of a green shell into their eyes, turning any section where a considerable amount of them appear into a genuinely pretty fun, like on-rails third-person shooter section. Trying to snipe down hordes of them as I zoom through the chambers of slimy Spring Galaxy is always a thrill, and for that I am quite fond of them. So yeah, for now I think they're going to rank above the Bomp, between the Bomp and the Urchin for now, I think. Pretty solid mid to lower B. And so next up are the Undergrunts. So the Undergrunts are the ground level troopers deployed by Major Burrows amidst the siege of Gusty Garden Galaxy here. Found all over varying planetoids, burrowing through and digging up the whimsical utopia with their spiked, camo-plated helmets poking through the ground as they claw around in fixed paths. Invulnerable to attacks until you ground pound near them, unearthing and stunning the Undergrunt, now open for a finishing attack. Now they do have a bit of an unfair advantage here because basically the entire mission they appear in is built around their gimmick, all leading up to and preparing you for Major Burrows, who is the ultimate test of this ground-pounding, mole unearthing mechanic. So each planetoid they appear on is tailor-made to make them elusive and engaging as they wrap around corners and horizons barely escaping your grasp, and I do find the process of slamming them up out of the ground pretty entertaining for what it is. So yeah, I think they are just solid enemies, but get carried by their context as you do feel like a force of good storming through this undergrunt occupation to liberate the Star Bunnies from their control. And I also do just like Monty Moles, and these are an acceptable substitute for them, I guess. So yeah, I'm feeling a high B, to be honest. Pretty easy high B for me. And next up we have the blue lava bubbles. So the blue lava bubbles work very well. These tiny little burning blue blobs that come bursting out of lava to hop around and obstruct your path, burning you on contact before fizzling out after a little while, or extinguishable via a very well aimed starbit snipe. And honestly, I see their entire purpose as just being a secondary pressure factor to whatever area they appear in, just a constant approaching threat that forces you to keep moving and making decisions on your feet as you collect star chips or silver stars, or best of all, duel with either King Caliente encounter, where they go a long way in making these encounters feel that much more frantic and chaotic as you now have even more to dance in and out of as you volley back each coconut shot. And I also just think the bright baby blue pops out really nice against the overwhelmingly red galaxies they appear in. So for what they are, they work very, very well in my opinion, but they are nothing revolutionary, so mid to lower B for me. But I love the blue lava bubbles. Good enemy. However, the same charity will not be extended to the blooper. So yeah, next we have the blooper, and you know, fucking blooper. Nah. Honestly, I don't care for these guys too much. I know bloopers are, again, a staple of the series and everything, but up until going and encountering them to write this section, I swear I literally never actually interacted with a single fucking blooper in any of my playthroughs. Just feels like they're all far too slow to mobilize and are too easily just, well, swam right past. They dwell amidst the depths of Boy Base and Deep Dark and Starshine Beach, blooping towards you as you approach, crashing in a cloud of ink on contact, but they do feel weirdly passive to me, serving more to just fill up otherwise enemyless empty space underwater. So they're just kind of here, I guess. They're just kind of there. I don't know. Low C, high D. Yeah, high D, I think. Worse than the Micro Goomba. So yeah, just there, I think. And even that charity will not be extended to what we have next. And what we have next is the tiny, wormy, weak, parasitic, cretinous slurples. These miniature blue pulsating Octoomba-esque like droplets who appear in small groups, emerging from bushes and greenery to hop over and latch onto the player like leeches, draining your health bar away in this claustrophobic, agonizing but easily avoidable slowed state, killed with a measly 1 spin attack and rewarding you with an equally measly 1 star bit, or 3 if you shoot them for some reason. And while it is fun to have them crushed by gem boulders rolling by, I really do not care for these guys. They are cowardly. There is no honor to their tactics. They look like tiny inflated stomachs. They aren't cute, and when they do manage to latch onto you, it's just fucking annoying. Their one saving grace is being so easily killable that they are rarely a nuisance, and to a degree they do fill out some planets in Good Egg Galaxy, I guess, which does have some really great like bustling and lively sections where I guess these guys do contribute to that. But overall, I've never been a fan of these guys. I've never been a big Slurple guy. I'm actually an anti-Slurple guy, so yeah, strong E tier, real happy healthy fucking E tier for these. Can I stomach them going just over Lil Springy? Because they probably are actually better than Lil Springy. Yeah, they're just above Lil Springy, but that's kind of interchangeable. Which brings us to the... Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. This brings us to the Magikoopa, the blue-robed, wand-wielding, dark magic magicians of Galaxy. The Magikoopas are some of the best enemies in Galaxy, in my opinion. Firstly, because the Fireball, the slow-moving, rolling, grounded hitbox of the Fireball, which is their primary projectile, is a fundamentally great hazard, in my opinion. One of these things chucked into a deep, dark Camella final phase or a slip-sand Galaxy Sandbird is a genuine threat you have to constantly tiptoe and dance around to avoid bursting into a disorientating burnt panic, which alongside them teleporting around was already enough to place them very high, in my opinion. Encountering one is a quick dash to get rid of them so they can't keep zipping around and tormenting you as soon as possible. But then Galaxy 2 comes in and adds 2 more varieties, ditching the Fireballs this time and spawning Micro Goombas and Lil Cinders respectively, transforming the Magikoopa into this elusive enemy conjuring wizard, hovering around you, spawning in extra enemies to antagonize you with, which is an awesome mechanic for these snake block sections, for example. And despite me not going too crazy for their designs, I love how they play in Galaxy. So the Magikoopas are genuinely an S tier enemy for me. They just work so well. So good, so good. I dare you to convince me otherwise. Which brings us to one of the most widespread things in Galaxy, if we're even going to call this an enemy, and I'm not even sure what they are called, like prickly plants, spiky plants, thorny plants, the prickly plants, I guess. So these red spiky plants are possibly the simplest and certainly one of the most widespread enemies in this entire video, because for the most part they are just stationary damaging hitboxes, and in isolation I do not find that very interesting. Their designs are a perfect fit for what they are. Sharp, jagged, pulsing blood red spikes do happen to communicate "do not touch me" quite efficiently, actually, and they are one of the most versatile, fundamentally sound tools for the game here. They are just danger incarnate. Place them around in the sky and now traveling through it actually requires some focus. Place them around on the ground and now walking around over it actually requires some focus. Place them around underwater water, and now swimming actually requires some focus. Make them extra big, cluster them together, line them up inside slides, just splatter them around in mundane locations. They literally just add hitboxes to 3D platforming areas. Their sheer versatility is undeniable, and mechanically they are an inevitable success. They just aren't very interesting to me. At least their animation loop is lively enough, and the red can pop quite nicely over most environments. So this is either really high up or just in the absolute centermost middle point of the list as the ultimate. Yeah, that works. C tier, I guess. So yeah, I am gonna put them there for now, but I think towards the end we'll probably do a final review of the tier list and shake some things around, polish it off a little bit. I have a feeling this is one of those things that's gonna get that treatment at the end, but C tier for now, mid C tier for now. And so next up is the Swap Hopper. The Swap Hoppers are the spike-shelled, sidestepping, antennaed bug creatures native to the 2D gravity-switching complexes of Right Side Down and Upside Dizzy Galaxy, as well as one appearance in Battle Belt Galaxy with the same gimmick, who embody that focal gravity flipping mechanic, as one side of them is vulnerable and stompable and the other side is invulnerable and damaging. And so as they are flipped up and down, either side reveals itself, making the way you interact with them different every few seconds. And to me, they're just fine. You know, they are the logical addition to these galaxies. It's just a gimmick I'm not already that crazy about, and so I'm pretty indifferent towards these guys. So yeah, probably just a mid-C tier for me. You know, they're fine. They're fine. Which brings us to the Fizzlets. So I can't be alone in just, like, really liking the Fizzlets for some reason. They're like these tooth-shaped, crooked-mouthed, gelatinous purple things that hop around side to side before melting into a wide, deadly, electrifying puddle for a few seconds and then returning to form to repeat that process. Their gimmick does work pretty well. It means you have to get in at just the right time to avoid this surprisingly wide hitbox or just snipe them out of it with good enough aim. But it probably is their design that I'm so fond of. For as simple as it is, they do just feel like these perfectly whimsical and charming, jittering, crazy, unstable little Mario space blobs just waiting to liquefy into a fizzling pool of death, because to them, you know, that's what makes life worth living. They are a fairly rare enemy as well, only appearing in 4 galaxies, and they are always a joy to run into for me. So yeah, I'm feeling definitely an A tier, a happy, healthy, probably lower A tier placement for the Fizzlets. And next is probably another A tier, actually. Next are the Bomb-Boos. So excluding the Bouldergeist rematch in Boss Blitz Galaxy, which is its own thing, these guys appear in just 1 star in just 1 galaxy. Ghostly Galaxy, of course, the restless spirits of these haunted halls and fragmented planetoids, emerging out of paintings and manifesting out of Bouldergeist's phantasmal dark energy. And to call this a variant of the Boo would be such an injustice. Where the Boo simply hovers towards you for as long as you aren't facing it, the Bomb-Boo charges at you in a frenzy to combust in a ball of flame, with the player having to spin attack it to grab a hold of its tongue, to then sling it around as an explosive ball and chain into nearby destructible stage elements, whether that be statues, crates, or Bouldergeist himself, with the Bomb-Boos as your vector of attack against him being one of the most satisfying impacts to land across the 2 games. Their design is playful and spooky. Mario's interaction with them is seamless. Them being a one-off novelty enemy means they literally have, again, like the Undergrunts, although they do appear actually in Gold Leaf Galaxy, I think, an entire mission purpose-built around them. So in terms of synergy with their environment, yes. And for everything I did say about Bouldergeist in my boss ranking, he is still a great boss, and the Bomb-Boos are a big part of that. So yeah, I'm feeling a strong mid to high A tier for these guys. I would have loved to have seen them more. Which carries us on to yet another one-off Galaxy 1 original enemy, the Ice Bat. So the Ice Bat is exclusive to this hidden sub-area in Freeze Flame Galaxy's Secret Star Conquering the Summit, where they patrol the skies with the same behaviors and attack pattern of the regular bats, but this time icy and frostbitten at these cloud-piercing altitudes. Immune to spin attacks and stomps, and now freezing Mario on contact, defeatable only with the Fire Flower, which you are supplied with throughout the area. And yeah, I do think these work great. You are under a time limit with the Fire Flower here, which alongside the other time-burning factors like bomps coming in and out of the walls and gem boulders rolling down your path means you need to hurry through this place to reach and burn through the snowmen before the Fire Flower wears off. And so these ice bats swooping down at you are just another attention-demanding, time-splitting factor on top of all that. Do you commit to killing them and rid yourself of the threat at the risk of missing the snowman, or do you just run past them as they remain a threat hunting you down from above? The answer, of course, being that you can do either with little to no resistance because this is a fucking Mario game. But still, relatively speaking, this is a well-incorporated, challenging, cooler-looking novelty variant of a already pretty decent enemy. So yeah, I'm a fan. Yeah, I'm loving these one-off obscure enemies. So probably just below the Bomp for me. Pretty good. Which brings us to the Podoboo, or the, regular lava bubble, which makes a pretty average appearance in Galaxy 2, reprising their role from the 2D titles as just blobs of lava that jump up and down out of lava as obstacles over gaps in the floor obstructing your jump, as well as jumping from one lava pit to another in an arc in this 2D section of Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet. And all in all, yeah, these are lava bubbles, I guess they work. They're very simple enemies and are efficient at halting you down to a more considered pace when traversing their areas, which could be either a bit boring in a Thwomp-esque fashion or a bit more engaging depending on how you look at it, I guess. But I just have to ask this: why didn't they include the eyes of the lava bubble here? They usually appear with two classic Mario enemy button eyes. The blue ones from Galaxy 1 did, so why didn't these? It just strips an already formulaic enemy of its last shred of character or charm, but, I guess it really isn't a big deal. So, I don't know. They do their job. It's very boring. Podoboos go low C tier. No, upper D tier for me, probably. I don't think this thing is better than the Micro Goomba. Just there. Which brings us to another Galaxy classic. We have the Mandibug. Now, hopefully I can win back what little shreds of the Mandibug fandom I have left after the damning slander I unleashed onto the Mandibug stack in my boss ranking video, because when not crudely masquerading as a boss, I think the Mandibugs are actually great enemies. The Mandibugs are these purple-shelled, golden-mandibuled, flat-topped beetles who you can find stationed all over Honeyhive Galaxy amidst their invasion of it under the command of their colossal insectoid master Bug-O-Boom, occupying the observation tower of the native bumblebees and just generally wreaking havoc across the area, remaining idly in fixed positions until the player crosses their sights, where they will then charge at them, biting and thrashing up to a point before crawling back to their outpost and repeating the process. They are basically the tutorial enemy for ground pounding, as the pattern on their back subtly clues you in on. One crushing ground pound is all you need to take these guys out, and landing that is very satisfying. I really like the purple and gold coloring too, so overall, as a vehicle for teaching a mechanic and an actual character and enemy, the Mandibugs work. They work great in my opinion. They are pretty iconic too, I feel like. So yeah, I'm actually going to throw them somewhere in A, I think, but probably just a low A. Low A placement for the Mandibugs. What a comeback from last time, eh? Which brings us on to a legendary trio, the Gummit, the green regular Gummit, the golden Gummit, and the spiky Gummit. So the Gummits appear as the main targets and obstacles of the two ice skating challenges run by the Chimp in Freezy Flake and Shiverburn Galaxy, these little gummy bear whack-a-mole ice-dwelling creatures who pop out of this 3x3 grid of holes in the ice, wave after wave in different configurations, coming in 3 different varieties. Firstly, the overwhelmingly most common green Gummit, who is but a stationary hitbox, awarding you a meager 10 points on elimination. And then is the much rarer shining golden Gummit, doing the same but awarding you 50 points on elimination. And then is the uneliminable spiky Gummit, who awards you 1 less health point on contact. And so the 3 Gummits form this little ice skating minigame, which admittedly is a pretty fun side attraction and requires a good amount of precision and speed to rack up the point total needed for a star. Narrowly weaving in between spiky Gummits and rapidly readjusting to each new configuration is a novel enough gimmick dynamic that only intensifies as the waves progress. I will probably just cluster them together in seed tier, though, with the Golden Gummit ranking the best for being the best feeling, and then the Spiky Gummit for being the most engaging, and then the humble regular Green Gummit for being neither of those things. Which brings us to the Para Goomba. So Galaxy 2 saw the first translation of the airborne winged Para Goomba into 3D, with it making a ton of appearances across the game. Flapping side to side or up and down in fixed paths, able to be taken out instantly with a stomp or spun out of the sky, either to its death or to the ground with its wings now clipped off, where it continues life as a standard grounded Goomba. And I have to say, I love these guys solely for how satisfying it is to just swat them out of the sky. Although they don't aggro onto you or anything in their wing form, and so are just completely passive until you've knocked them out of it, but you know, they're nothing insane, but definitely a welcome splash of variety into the Goomba family, just beside their wingless counterpart, I think. And while I guess not as iconic, so maybe not deserving of a spot above, I actually do personally prefer them, so I will just put them one spot above the regular Goomba. Which leads us to the Magmarg's smaller, slightly less epic looking, more slender magma pillar peers, the Magmoles, found only swimming around the final lava planetoid of Melty Monster Galaxy here, where they endlessly splash through the planetoids you're hopping across, phasing through burnt asteroids one after the other, creating, in my opinion, a superb final sub area here, where it is a genuine challenge to squeeze through these brief windows between each Magmole as they swallow the very ground you stand on. The entire planet working together in perfect harmony, dozens of Magmoles just flooding through the foreground. And personally, despite the slightly flatter, much less grand design visually, I definitely prefer these over the Magmargs, and honestly most other enemies actually. They are just way more engaging, way faster, and demand of you way more precise timing and movement. So yeah, I really wish these guys had more of a presence in Galaxy 2, as just this one area leaves me wanting so much more. But for what we did get of them, I think they are incredible, seriously. So very solid. High A for me. With a cooler design like the Magmargs, these would have gone S for sure. And next up is the Star Bag. So the Star Bags aren't really enemies as much as they are just fun little distractions scattered around the Marioverse. Scampering little money bag creatures who sneak around cloaked in invisibility as they hoard a load of star bits. I guess they've been thieving from other inhabitants of the galaxy. The player needing to follow around the footprints they leave behind as they walk around in the sand to rip them out of their invisibility with a spin attack before finishing them off for a potent dopamine hit of 20 star bits just bursting out of them. And they have an entertaining enough little gimmick, a funny waddling sound as they plonk around, failing to go unnoticed, a nice design with the green burglar patterning and sandals, and do provide an optional but rewarding little 10-second diversion from your objective. So you have to appreciate the Star Bags. Solid B tier for me. Which brings us to the Cheep Cheep. So the Cheep Cheeps reprise their role as just sort of the basic filler fodder enemy for underwater sections in Galaxy, and well, for that I guess they do work. I've never been crazy about the Cheeps. Their design is just whatever for me. You'll find them swimming around leisurely in water galaxies, just minding their own business, where of course you should put an end to that. As well as this one bizarre appearance in Deep Dark with a trio of them bouncing around this tiny planet, where I guess it is enjoyable enough to spin attack through the three of them. And I don't know, overall, basically zero complaints or compliments for these guys from me. And they do kind of feel like the absolute definitive C tier? Or maybe D. Yeah, I think D actually. Is that too harsh? Is that too harsh for the Cheeps? But what do they even do? No, okay, we'll put them in C just for that funny deep dark appearance, but they're low C for sure. Which brings us to the Spine Cone. So the Spine Cones are these tiny little purple sea snails clad under spiky iridescent shells sliding around the basin of Starshine Beach Galaxy in the vertical halls of Boo Moon's Howling Tower, where they just kind of shimmy around, offering a hitbox to be avoided while sliding through corridors and tunnels. And yeah, they are just a very simple, predictable, moving enemy that feel much more suited to 2D, where they can offer some engaging sections with you needing to properly time your entry past them with the slightly trickier to control Boom Mario. But overall, you know, not too much to say about these guys. They're pretty boring, but I guess serve a purpose. They probably are just around the Cheep Cheep as well. Definitely a very low C. And so next up is the Dry Bones. Now, let's all glaze Dry Bones for a second. In Galaxy, they feature in near enough every castle-themed level, as well as both games' signature desert levels, both Dusty Dune and Slipsand, where they reprise their role as the roaming undead, wandering aimlessly until approached by either plumber who they then manically rush towards. Upon being foot-stomped, crumbling into a pile of bones before reanimating and returning to antagonize the player seconds later, vanquishable only via the Rainbow Star, a Bullet Bill, Lava, or Quicksand. And although my obligatory random Mario enemy pick in the party games is usually Monty Mole, and not Dry Bones. Yeah, I'm a Monty Mole guy, sorry. Dry Bones will always be a close second. Its design is just timeless. The dry aesthetic of Mario enemies is always just peak, and having this enemy unkillable through normal means who'll just keep swarming and wearing you down until you fully commit to dealing with them or finally escape from them is great. Dry Bones does scrape S tier for me. One of the best, like, normal boots on the ground enemies in the game. It definitely goes a long way in enhancing the barren or deadly aesthetic of the Galaxy. However, we have seen Dry Bones a million times. It doesn't mean I'm tired of seeing it, but it's just nothing too inventive at this point. And there is also that single anomalous Dry Bones in Starshine Beach who loads in off stage, never to be seen by the player in game, who instantly falls to his demise each time you boot up the stage in this infinite loop of lonesome death. So, you know, that's got to bump him up the rankings a bit, right? But yeah, high A tier. Dry Bones high A tier for sure. Which brings us to the Chopper. So the Choppers are these hard-shelled, bulbous green beetles you'll find buzzing around in the air with their spiky orange helmets, lazily hovering back and forth and up and down in 2D sections or narrower pathways in 3D. Ordinarily unkillable, but able to be gobbled up by Yoshi in Sweet Mystery Galaxy, which, man, must Yoshi have some Kirby-esque digestive powers, because I don't know how else he managed to wolf down this steely, heavy-duty spiked bug so fast. Razor-sharp, spitting saw blade wings and all. But yeah, I personally do like the Choppers. They are just charming, fat fellas leisurely hovering around the skies. So, you know, another moving hitbox. You know, we love those. So yeah, low B, I think. Low B for the Chopper. And so next is the Spiky Topman. So these guys are the heart and soul of the Topman tribe. The Spiky Topmen, alongside the Octoombas, are just the most Galaxy-coded enemies of this roster. Any other enemy I could reasonably guess to have come out of a different 3D Mario if I wasn't already aware, but these two just epitomize Galaxy to me. I don't know why, not to sound like stupid or redundant, because obviously they are from Galaxy, but they just nail that spacey, sleek, cosmic, late 2000s what if Mario but space vibe the best for me. These slick, revolving red robo spinning tops charging around to engage you in a brute clash as you both bluntly crash into each other. The fight just coming down to whoever wants it more. Their spiked top rendering them immune to stomp, so you're forced to engage with them on their terms as they try to launch you into nearby electrifying fences as you do the same to them. Just making for a pretty all-round great enemy that totally isolates and gives time to shine to the spin attack, as well as being a significant threat boost to Top Maniac, the Topman tribe chief, deploying them as peons to fight alongside him in his encounter. So yeah, super solid, splendid design. Definitely a mid to high A. Probably like Tox Box, Bombu level, I think. And next is the Pokey Head. So the Pokey Heads are extremely basic enemies. They are the lesser, unripe green head segments of the Pokey, concealing themselves underground initially with their head top flowers visible, emerging once you approach them with this primitive hopping movement being their only attack as they try to get to you, killable with a single stomp or spin attack. And this all may sound like prologue to a very mediocre placement, but they are somewhat saved by comprising the first stage of a pretty cool like evolution line of Pokeys with the upcoming red and fully grown Pokey iterations. And at least their designs are fun enough, so I quite enjoy running into these little fellas, you know, just a few more tiny dopamine splashes across the journey. Anything above C would feel too generous to me, so they are probably a definitive mid-tier, middle of C, which does lead us onto the next stage of the Pokey life cycle, the Red Pokey, the midpoint between Hopping Head and Towering Pillar. The Red Pokeys, summoned after the rest of its lesser ilk are slain, operate by shimmying around and trying to land a heavy faceplant, dragging their body down with it, but recovering from it pretty fast. Each of its segments able to be spun attack off, with its head being its target to be killed, even burrowing back into the sand to re-emerge with any destroyed parts regenerated at times, but annoyingly having a really long, just unneeded pause after being hit, kind of just becoming a complete sitting duck to be destroyed by a quick succession of attacks with no resistance. Again, it is cool with it belonging to this little pokey trio and is a neat one-off encounter, but that awkward pause does genuinely irk me. So yeah, a low B in my opinion. A bit of missed potential here, but a low B. Which of course moves us on to the final form of the Pokey trilogy. Sadly, also on the topic of missed potential. The true, fully grown Pokey. This giant spiked tower of segments, immune to physical attacks and looming over the top of the planetoid it erupts from. Slamming down on you like before, requiring you to boot one of the surrounding coconuts at it to strike through its segments and knock its head down into the sand to be stomped on. Now, on one hand, it is cool how this stands out, almost like a sort of mini-boss for Galaxy, an exceptionally large enemy with an entire planetoid built around it, but I do think it taking just one coconut hit to topple over is a big missed opportunity, and honestly feels kind of weird because I'm always expecting it to take multiple hits, whittling it down segment by segment until only its head remains, which just seems like the logical structure for a Pokey fight like this. But even with that, the novelty and whimsy of the giant Pokey is tangible, and I do think its appearance in Dusty June with you having to kick over some coconuts as ammunition from the neighboring planet is a neat little thing. So, you know, nothing crazy and a bit of a letdown, but a big net positive to whatever galaxy it appears in for sure. So probably a high B, low A, yeah, high B, like Urchin, Undergrunt level. Which moves us on to the Spangler, which are a variant of the Spoing, hanging from a thread of silk, abdomens now grey and smooth, skin now a purpley maroon, who will descend from their positions to just sort of gently swing around in these wriggling blockades, a spin attack sending them dizzying around to then be battered away again with a follow-up spin finisher, which is quite fun actually. And yeah, there's not much more to say really. I get the same vibe off these guys as I do their fuzzy brethren, and they work similarly well in aesthetic function in Galaxy, so you know, nothing too crazy, pretty fun to engage with. So yeah, I don't know, probably just below the Spoing for me, not quite as fun to take out, but still fun to take out. So next up we have the Jacko Goomba, who I want to put in S just because it's the fucking Jacko Goomba. Like, this is one of the coolest, most iconic enemies. This is just the most goes hard enemy in Galaxy. And to be honest, writing this section, I was going to just put it very high A, but the more I think about the Jacko Goomba, it could genuinely be an S. Like, it is really good. So yeah, it is definitely a high A for me, which to be honest, it could have gone anyway, almost entirely off of style points. The Jacko Goomba's starry-eyed, pumpkin-armored, ghostly glowing design is way up there for me. It's so simple, but works so well. It is just so vibrant and endearing, complementing the spooky, gloomy graveyard galaxies it appears in with a nice pop of color, as well as actually just enhancing the vibe of them even further. And of course, these are a variant of the Goomba, now clad in a pumpkin helm. They wander around aimlessly like before, not able to actually see you through the pumpkin though, and conjuring up these ghostly blue flames which they leave to linger around for a little while as they move around. And their pumpkin acting as an extra layer of defense, firstly against regular stomps, which they are now immune to, which is good for all the same reasons as the Astro Goomba, which we'll see later, and just as an extra hit point against spin attacks, which knock them out of it and revert them to regular Goomba state. Though of course you can bypass all this with a very satisfying ground pound, as long as it's timed well enough to avoid slamming right down into their flame. And yeah, the more I talk about this thing, the further it creeps up towards S. It's just so goated, I'm sorry. So, is it S? It is essentially the perfect fodder enemy, in my opinion. Great aesthetic, really fun to engage with, all around amazing enemy. Yeah, go on S. It's gotta be S. It's just gotta be done, Anna. Go on up an S, Jacko Goomba. You've earned it. You truly are S. Jacko Goomba, what an enemy. What an enemy. And so next up we have the Top Minis, the tiniest expendable snack-sized soldiers of the Topman tribe. The miniature yellow spinning Top Minis are still determined to bump and bounce into Mario, banding together in clusters, incapable of actually dealing damage and defeatable with a mere one spin attack. They really do obviously serve to fill a role as a cute, teeny tiny fodder enemy who can still punish you for underestimating them, serving as no more than a distraction in most scenarios, but leveling up to a real threat in deadlier obstacle-dense areas like Space Storm Galaxy, or of course Top Maniac's boss fight if you choose to engage with them, where they are able to bounce and ricochet you off into danger zones if you're not careful. And so yeah, they do nail the obligatory cute, tiny, micro enemy role, which is probably all they set out to do with these guys, while also bolstering the ranks of the Topman tribe. So You can't hate on these guys. Probably a high C. I'm feeling a high C, I think. Mid to high C, like bat level, around the level of the bats. And next are the Cluck Booms. So these fiery, explosive, bomb-dropping roosters are exclusive to the sandy stretches of either game's premiere, Desert Galaxy, both Dusty Dune and Slipsand, where you encounter them flapping overhead as they try to bombard you with explosive eggs, dropping them down to explode after a few seconds. And to be fair, I do think they work pretty well. I love their frazzled, vibrant designs, manically squawking and flapping around, and they are a good complement to these quicksand and elevator sections as an additional threat to keep them from being too passive or trivial, as well as just being pretty fun to snipe down from the sky and smash into starbits. So, you know, they're a pretty decent enemy. Fun design, not too threatening, so probably just a high C for me. You know, they're good. Cluck Booms, high C. But now we have Cosmic Mario. So how do we judge this thing? Because it really isn't fair to pit this guy against the humble Flaptack or the fucking Pokey Head, because this isn't just an enemy but the gimmick of an entire subset of Prankster Comet Mission. So I'm going to place it according to how well it fulfills that. How well does it do in its role as a rival to be raced against? And for that, it's just pretty good. It's pretty good, I guess. Outside of perhaps the Seaslide race, maybe, these will hardly ever be competitive. Cosmic Mario takes a very slow route, rarely long jumping or taking shortcuts if at all, and often taking intentional slower detours and slipping up, like exiting the water in Seaslide to let you get ahead. And not to rant on about difficulty in a Goo Goo Gaga kids game, but these definitely should have been tougher races. You can almost always get to the star in time to turn around, kick up your feet, crack open a cold one and watch as Cosmic Mario is just stumbling his way through the course miles off into the distance. The idea itself is fun though. Racing against a rival has been a staple of 3D Mario, and its design as this star-splattered cosmic mimic of Mario is super memorable, and it's just a neat gimmick, like I said. So yeah, I'm feeling a high B. Maybe no, high B's steep. High B's too steep. Mid to low B, actually. I think mid to low B seems harsh, but I do think it's appropriate for what it is, especially in comparison to what's coming next, which is, of course, Cosmic Luigi, which is an objective upgrade of this, who this time around does take shortcuts, does long jump and cut corners, doesn't throw time away on slip-ups and detours, and does make things competitive. So I'd place him quite a bit higher up into A tier. I think, actually. It was with Luigi they truly unlocked the potential of this cosmic race formula. Even Honey Hive Galaxy's race, which was a total joke with Mario, can keep you on your toes with Luigi. So yeah, solid high A tier for me. Definitely a good challenge and a very fun encounter. Which brings us to the Womp. Now I am a big Womp guy. The Womp is for sure my favorite of the stone-faced, crushing block Thwomp family. I just find their sheer existence as these walking, grunting, giant concrete faces to be one of the most striking and expressive enemy designs in the entire Mario franchise. Their faces etched into a permanent contorted rage, piercing red eyes constantly staring you down as they go for one big all-or-nothing slam, insta-killing you under their devastating weight should they catch you with it, and leaving them grounded and totally defenseless should they miss. They are just the ultimate winner-takes-all enemy exchange. They play for keeps. They're here to throw out one of the deadliest attacks in the series and totally willing to forfeit their lives if they fail. It's just one deadly make-or-break interaction with everything on the line. The Womps face-planting down into the ground, exposing their cracked ground-pound symboled backs, able to be crushed and burst into starbits themselves. And I'm gonna be honest, this is probably more just personal, unexplainable bias than it should be, but Womps go S for me. They go S for me, no doubt about it. There is just something about them. These impossibly angry, bizarre, stumbling stone cuboids are just some of my absolute favorite enemy encounters whenever Bowser does decide to deploy them. So yeah, definitely an S for me. And so next is the Octoomba, which I feel is a very important enemy to rank, because to me it kind of is the enemy of Galaxy. It's the premier, new, basic and abundant enemy of the duology, epitomizing the aesthetic of Galaxy, being this yellow polka-dotted blue alien blob creature bouncing along set paths, spewing rocks out at you from all ranges. The Oct-Oomba. This is the Goomba of space and the lowest rank of the Octo Empire in Galaxy, under the many layers of command, training up to King Caliente and Prince Picante, as you can find these guys stationed around their battle fleets and any galaxies with a strong Octoomba military presence. But at least in Galaxy 1, they actually only appear in 4 galaxies, which is bizarre to me, and they don't even spit out rocks in Galaxy 1. They just hop from side to side and try to headbutt you when you're close enough, which is kind of just okay, I guess. I don't know. I always remember them spitting rocks, but that isn't until Galaxy 2, where they also appear in a whopping 15 galaxies total. So yeah, they definitely made up for the slightly underwhelming deficit from Galaxy 1 here, which also saw the introduction of the Elite Octoomba, a now 2-antennaed green Octoomba who spit out 2 rocks in quick succession. Kind of just an objective mechanical improvement, to be honest. More of a threat, but nowhere near as iconic, and the blue and yellow coloring definitely did work better than the green, to be fair. And also across both games are the slightly less common Octo guys, these squatter, chubbier pink Octoombas who spit rocks in both games, but have slightly more interesting behavior in my opinion, in that they try to get to a certain distance before lining up their rock shots at you, retreating away if you're too close and closing in if you're too far away, who honestly I probably do slightly prefer over the base regular Octoomba and maybe even the Elite Octoomba for their more elaborate playstyle and being more expressive, but to be honest, still I do think the Elite Octoomba just about edged them out again for their superior firepower. But yeah, for what they mean to the games, I feel like they all have to go A tier. S would definitely be an exaggeration in my opinion. That would be glazing their iconic factor too hard, but they are the bread and butter cosmic alien aesthetic enemy class, and at least one of these little alien octopi critters will manage to wiggle its way into my memory of any given galaxy from the game, so sheer iconicness does still carry them pretty high. And overall, I do think having these little artillery foot soldiers tying into a few of the bosses planted around everywhere is great. So yeah, mid A tier. I think it will go Elite Octoomba, Octo Guy, Octoomba downwards. But should the Octoomba actually go above for being, you know, the Octoomba, the most recognizable and iconic one? And then should the Octo Guy actually go at the top of the 3 for being the most expressive? But then that leaves the Elite Octoomba at the bottom, which mechanically isn't true. So, okay, let's just say this group of 3 isn't ranked in itself for now. This is just a cluster of 3. They're all equal. Maybe we'll rank them properly at the end, but for now, I just can't decide. All 3 mid-A, great enemies. Which does bring us to the flip bug. And I have to admit, initially I did approach this placement with some malice, but I don't think I was being entirely fair to the flip bugs, because I've always just innately disliked them. Not really with any conscious thought. They just give off pathetic, weaselly cockroach vibes. Not quite to as damning an extent as these Slurples, but they could be some relative or pre-metamorphosed form of the much superior Mandibug, which they are often cited alongside with the similar eyes and crunching gold mandible. But that does more or less nothing to garner them any mercy here. I do not like these insects. They cower and scramble away from you when you approach as base Mario, pitifully flailing onto their backs as they tire out. Or if you are B Mario, they will gormlessly hover towards you in a hypnotized trance. So yeah, I guess really they are just inoffensive filler fodder enemies again, and they can be pretty satisfying to knock onto their backs and then blast away with a spin attack. So I'm gonna be nice here. I'm gonna be real nice here. I'm gonna charitably give them a flimsy C tier for now. You know, I want to go D, but I don't think that's quite fair to them. At least they're somewhat elaborate, I guess. And next is the water shooter. So now we have the water variant of the 3 shooter enemies, these small metal nozzles that blast out bubbles as projectiles, or sometimes even methods of travel, wrapping you inside them and carrying you way out of your path, bearing a striking and I'd guess intentional resemblance to Flood from Mario Sunshine, which is the only thing I can really stomach to praise these things for. I just find them annoying. The bubble is super annoying to get caught in and just feels jarring as it abruptly rips you out of your movement, and besides the somewhat fun use of them in Deep Dark as they blast you from planet to planet, I just find them to be plain, forgettable, mediocre, and sometimes even irritating enemies. So charitably, I'll give them a a bottom of D placement right at the bottom. That is subject to lowering, I'm going to be honest with you. But yeah, bottom of D for now. Which brings us to the Boo. So the regular run-of-the-mill Boo in Galaxy is probably going to fall in like upper C tier for me here. It is just a solid enemy. It'll glide towards you when you're not looking, but freeze up and get shy when you are, becoming transparent and revealing whatever coins or items it may hide inside, which you can only obtain by luring or spinning the Boo into a light source to evaporate it, or for the underwater ones who instead just bob around in fixed positions, you can laser them away with the front headlight of a shell, a la the Snoodle, which it is pretty fun to beam your way through hordes of Boos in Big Mouth or Battle Belt Galaxy, and they do come in a spectrum of sizes, from the regular Boo to the big Boos, which we see flanking the Mega Boo in Haunty Halls Galaxy, which we will discuss later. But there is also one more anomaly in between the regular and big Boo, which is this Boo, again from the Boo in a Box mission in Deep Dark Galaxy, who actually uses a different model to the regular Boo and is noticeably larger than usual here. Its actual model being considerably larger than the regular Boo, but being scaled down to a third of its size here, perhaps swollen with the power of the power star it has consumed. But yeah, that was completely irrelevant to the ranking because it plays the exact same. I just felt like the Boos deserved some further discussion. It is also neat how they will fall in love with the player when using the Boo Mushroom, following you around in a smitten trance, giving the player the illusion of experiencing even the most remote shred of romance, when in reality, I am sat in my room rotting, playing a kids game for hours on end in total depressing social isolation for perhaps a few thousand views if I'm lucky. But still, you know, the Boos place like high C for me, kind of just whatever to play against, I guess. There's some like cool trivia, but you know, they're just okay. Which leads us on to the Octo Boo, the ghostly fusion of the Octoomba and the Boo, though only really in appearance, as this is much more Boo than it is Octoomba. The Octo Boos being encountered circling around and bobbing through the air in groups, able to be spin attacked into transparency for a brief moment like the regular Boos, but unkillable and unremovable from their fixed paths otherwise, as well as appearing in 2D sections following similar simple fixed paths and circles as they roam the haunted halls of Boo Moon's Howling Tower. And overall, they are just good, you know. I value them a lot more for their aesthetic quality as an amusing, fun blend of the two enemies, which actually does look pretty nice on them. And mechanically, they do just function decent enough, I guess. They do feel slightly janky to spin through for me, but work well enough as just moving hitboxes to be avoided, particularly in the faster secret snake block section of Boo Moon, and in 2D, I guess they work just fine, you know. Overall, acceptable enemy for me, a few spots above the original Boo, probably just scrapes by into B. Which leads us on to the Flaptack. That's right, Galaxy 2 has its very own angry bird. The mono-spiked, bright blue feathered Flaptack can be found flapping and tacking around the skies of Fluffy Bluff, Cloudy Court, and on a slightly eerier note, Flash Black Galaxy, where it'll huff and puff over your head once you're in range, winding up to then come slamming down to the ground, where it'll get itself stuck and dizzied for a few seconds, its fuzzy orange underbelly now exposed and vulnerable to a foot stomp. And in all honesty, I kind of see these guys as a better version of the Cluck Boom. Their designs are vibrant and fun, but still the Cluck Booms do have them beat there. I just think mechanically they're way more fun. Waiting for them to drop down as they line up their shot from above before getting in that stomp is much preferred to the already decent but not quite as engaging avoidance of inanimate bombs. So yeah, they can also destroy cloud platforms by dropping through them, so you know, watch out for that. Pretty cool extra threat there, which they explored that a bit more, like putting a bunch of them here in Cloudy Court's poisonous basin planet or something. I don't know, that would have been a great idea, as destroying clouds only really applies to like 3 Flaptacks anyway. But still, yeah, fun enemy for me, fun, colourful Galaxy 2 enemy. You know, Galaxy 2 is on a roll with its original enemies, to be honest. Yeah, solid mid-B, I think. Pretty good enemy. But next up, we have the Silver Chomp. So the Silver Chomps, or the homing Chomps, are a much rarer variant of the Chomp appearing in Galaxy 2. Defined by their now silvery metal casing, their manic red eyes rattling around in their sockets, and their behavior of constantly rolling towards the player, making them much more of a threat than the Chomp, and again, kind of functioning like a mini-boss of sorts, with the grudge match and rolling masterpiece where you have to bump it off the platform with the Starball as it tries to do the same to you, and with it being dropped into the end of the sand Sandbird section in Slip Sand Galaxy, where you just have to survive its onslaught as it rolls through and dissolves the platform you're standing on. And a cluster of 4 appearing as the final challenge of Battle Belt Galaxy's enemy gauntlet, as you have to outrun and smack back bulb plants at them as they chase you down. All these appearances offer a unique challenge and work amazingly in my opinion, and quite predictably, you know, I love this enemy. It's an awesome evolution on the Chomp, giving it even more of a threatening demeanor as it marches you down and repeatedly collides with you. I do kind of just see it as an objective improvement over the Chomp, to be honest. It has even more of a presence, poses way more of a threat, and in Slip Sand Galaxy kind of just works perfectly in my opinion. So I am going to slide it just over the Chomp in the tip of S tier here for me, for all the same reasons and more. It could genuinely be my favorite Super Mario Galaxy enemy, to be honest, but we'll see. We'll see how the Kleptoad stacks up later on. And in the 2009 E3 trailer for Galaxy 2, we actually do see a gigantic silver Chomp appearing on this tiny planetoid, which never made it into the final game. And you may guess that's because it got reworked into Sorbetti, right? But no, Sorbetti himself is also in the trailer. So yeah, this supermassive silver Chomp is a tragic case of cut content, but for what we did see of the silver Chomp, it's enough for an S. And so next up is the Rocto. So the Roctos are superb enemies. These brooding, swollen, hulking, dark grey coiled Octoombas, stationed atop airships and barrels as the ultimate line of defense for their monarchs, providing artillery fire for Bowser's conquest as they offer small slices of the coconut volleying fireball dodging peak that is King Caliente and Prince Bacante's encounters, spitting fireballs and coconuts at you for you to deflect back with a spin attack to knock them off their stations and unlock the path forward, working especially well in the high pressure precise flip switching segment of Grandmaster Galaxy, where a spin to bounce the coconut back to them and eliminate them as a threat also comes with the shifting of the ground beneath you. A brilliant use of the Rocto, a super satisfying, sadly short-lived enemy with a killer design and a great mechanic. Thumping that coconut right back at them is a simple pleasure, and I don't know, I just think the Roctos are a perfect addition to the Octoomba forces. So yeah, easy high A tier for me, easy high A tier for me. Probably the top of A tier. Actually, super strong. If they take another hit or two, they'd go S for me for sure. But as they stand, they are just a bit too flimsy and short-lived. And so next up is the Bob-Omb. So the Bob-Omb of Mario Galaxy comes in a few different like models, I guess. Most commonly being ejected out of these Bob-Omb dispensers, chucking out either the active, two-legged, mobile, you know, regular Bob-Ombs who will hurry towards you, lighting their fuse and flashing red before detonating, or the legless, inert, immobile Bob-Ombs used as explosive projectiles by Mario to explode through glass barriers or suffer through the dreaded Guillermo garbage dump exploding side mission. But then they also appear again in their regular able-bodied form in the rolling starball mounted galaxies like Rolling Gizmo or Rolling Coaster, where bumping into them is far deadlier as they explode and bounce you off of them on collision, which is a real threat in these more precise, motion-controlled, finicky, already rage-inducing tense starball missions, turning whatever grounds they occupy into erratic minefields of death. So they are another household Mario enemy, so they kind of had to be here, and as they exist in Galaxy, I think they're a pretty fun and engaging addition. So yeah, low B, I guess. Sometimes they do feel a bit slow paced, just waiting around for them to explode, but still, yeah, decent low B, I think. Which leads us on to, wow, we've been on a bit of a hot streak with high rankings here. Now we have the Bullet Bill. So I am feeling a very high ranking for the premier homing projectile enemy of Galaxy. The Bullet Bills are found firing out from blasters stationed all over the duology, where they soar out into the skies, locking onto the player when close enough and homing in on you until either it or you is detonated, acting both as a genuinely challenging enemy, forcing you to move quickly and swerve around them, and a tool to advance courses, using their homing capabilities to lure them over and smash through cages and gates for your own objectives, or doing the same by swallowing and reshooting them out as Yoshi, which is a super fun, great mechanic. Their appearances in boss fights like Bowser Jr.'s airship duel or his later piloting of Mega Hammer are great, just being these constant incoming threats chasing you down relentlessly. And yeah, I would have loved to have seen these guys in the Boomsday Machine fight as well. And I also do love their eyes turning red as they lock onto you. It makes them feel way more dangerous and aggressive than usual. And they are just a great aesthetic tool to reinforce and establish the militarization of so many galaxies at the hands of Bowser's empire. So yeah, overall superb enemy, really fun to engage with for me, so I am genuinely thinking a high A. Yeah, probably a high A. Just below the ground Urchin. That might sound crazy, but, you know, I'm a big fan of the ground Urchin. And also, please observe the absolute aura of this screenshot I managed to grab of it in no clip for this tier list. So I'm pretty proud of myself for that one. You know, it goes hard for sure. But you know what doesn't go hard? You want to know what does not go hard? Torpedo Ted. Torpedo Ted does not go hard. So yeah, I'm really not crazy about these guys. They're just bullet bills, but much worse, in my opinion. Sporting a slimmer, longer design, a more mischievous expression, and of course appearing exclusively underwater, where they home in on you just the same. Definitely less fun for me, simply because underwater is far less enjoyable to control than land is. Now, that grievance I don't necessarily share with their appearance in Drip Drop Galaxy, where they act as a constant following threat as you hunt down the Gringills. And since you're using a shell most of the time, it is actually pretty fun to just outpace and smoothly maneuver around them in kind of the same vein as the Bonefins, but not quite as cool. But then in Boy Base, where you are forced to interact with them to even really begin the stage, luring them over to a glass cage is just annoying, awkwardly treading water around the glass as you wait for the torpedo to get to you as you tweak the camera around to see it is just annoying. Shellless swimming is generally just bad in Galaxy, and it defines this interaction with Torpedo Ted for me. And I also just don't think they look as cool. Nowhere near as cool, actually, so I don't know. Bottom of C, I actually want to put it in D, but that feels slightly too harsh, so we'll go bottom of C. Which leads us on to the Spiny. So the Spinies return in Galaxy 2 as both a spiky, ouchy, do not touch enemy and a pretty fun, basic, straight shooting ammunition source for Yoshi, and also as total fucking fodder for the all-destroying power of the Rainbow Star. These Spinies, as per usual, just idly wandering around until you're close enough for them to chase after you. Also appearing as yet another moving hitbox crawling around the tool trunk slide, which is just another welcome obstacle to swerve around there. And yeah, in isolation, they are a pretty decent basic enemy and projectile, and a nice pop of color too. So, you know, kind of just Spiky Plant on legs. So yeah, I guess upper C, I guess, I don't know. Which brings us on to the Spring Topman, a modified model of the Spiky Topman, having its defensive capabilities swapped out for the utility of a trampoline. Acting the exact same as the former, but popping out a spring with a burst of confetti for a couple seconds when hit for Mario to jump up to higher areas with. And I mean, this is just a better, more fun way of putting in a trampoline tool to jump up higher than usual when the stage needs it. Not much more to this guy, but the design is nice again, and the little confetti burst is fun. So yeah, I like it. You know, for what it is, it does the job. Mid to high C, I guess. Or actually mid, okay, high seems a bit generous. Maybe mid to low C, I think. Maybe lower C. Yeah, well, I don't know. Mid C, mid C. And next up is the Koopa Trooper. Seconded only by the Goomba, really, in iconic Mario enemy-ness. The Koopa appears in Galaxy with a much fiercer expression here, marching diligently to and fro along set paths, able to be spin attacked to retreat them back into their shells, which you may then violently launch as projectiles or use as jet-powered torpedoes for faster and infinitely more enjoyable underwater traversal. So they are multi-purpose, and both purposes are fun, and I personally do prefer this more determined, angry-looking quadrupedal Koopa to the usual, still lovable, happy, standing bath ones. So, you know, you always love to see a classic character return, especially in such a fun way mechanically. So yeah, they're definitely going to place pretty high. Nothing crazy, but maybe like Crabber territory. In fact, probably just beside the Goomba, I think. Just below the Goomba, or just below the Twirlet. Yeah, but Goomba territory. You know, you love to see two veterans get their flowers. Which brings us to the Banzai Bills. So these are essentially the airborne, strictly linear counterpart to the Chomps, in the sense of them just being dominating, usually indestructible, jet black, massive hitboxes that turn any set path they're moving along into their property. And they achieve that role to comparable success, making a great and memorable appearance just once in Galaxy 1 during this ultimate heavy artillery bullet bill blasting lava tunnel section in Bowser's Galaxy Reactor, and going on to appear much more often in Galaxy 2, featuring featuring more so across linear paths where they are like these crushing walls closing in on you as you hide or squeeze past them. But also some other good appearances like being blasted out by Mega Hammer, which just enhances the formidableness and cool factor of that boss even further. Now, I don't rate these guys quite as highly as the Chomps, since their paths are strictly linear and one-directional, whereas the Chomps were a bit more elaborate, following the curves and shapes of Planetoids, making for a more engaging path to work around. But these are still cool, more predictable, but still respect-demanding big bad enemies. Similarly fun to smash through with the Rainbow Star as well, so yeah, probably a mid A, I think. Which brings us to the Eye Beamer. So these robotic laser beaming eyes you encounter as satellites orbiting different planetoids are the Eye Beamers, found most prominently in Dreadnought Galaxy, where you find dozens and dozens of them, zapping down on planets as you weave in between these pillars of damage, both stationary and moving, being activated en masse at the end of the mission, infiltrating the Dreadnought, almost like these many hexagon-plated staring eyes are the all-seeing intruder deleting surveillance system of the Dreadnought. But then you just randomly find this pair of them in dusty Dune Galaxy over this quicksand planet, the Eye Beamers themselves teleporting all over the galaxy out of bounds when not in use. So yeah, they've got that going for them as well, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, I think they're a cool fitting element in Dreadnought, but nothing insane. Mid-C, I guess. Which leads us on to the Fire Shooter. So now we have the fire variant of the 3 shooter enemies, the antithesis of the water shooter, charging up and spewing out plumes of flame every few seconds to a more threatening and less annoying effect than the bubbles. Still functioning as a pretty generic obstacle though, with its only real memorable appearance for me being in the Toy Time Undergrunt Gunner boss fight, where it does further bolster the danger zone of zapping and burning hitboxes you have to maneuver through as Spring Mario, as its only appearance in Galaxy 2 in Bowser's Galaxy Generator, which I forgot was actually the fire shooter, since here it's pointed upwards, launching balls of fire up into the sky as you glide down with a flower, making for a more cinematic and engaging area transition here. But yeah, overall, just a decent enough functional stage element with this thing, I guess. Pretty boring, but it shoots fire, you know. It's the fire shooter. Bro shoots fire. Low C. Low C. But now we have the Wiggler. So the Wigglers are an enemy that just encapsulate happy-go-lucky Mario whimsy wherever they appear, and it's always a joy to find them trundling along in their many boots in Galaxy, where, like a lot of enemies, you'll find them strolling around planetoids or walking around endlessly in circles, able to be spun over and squashed for a burst of star bits, or stomped on and enraged to then chase you down in a bloodthirsty reddened fury. Or in Tool Trunk Galaxy, they appear lining the inside of the slide, walking around either in their peaceful state as easier moving obstacles to hop over and avoid on your way down, or in their enraged state as they come thundering right at you, or storming around in circles as much harder obstacles, working in perfect harmony with the Spiky Plant here to create a genuinely super engaging section that's a blast to replay again and again for me. But yeah, overall the Wiggler is a super solid enemy, really fun design, packed with character, and its angry frenzy is nothing to sneeze at, so definitely a respectable mid to low A, I think. You know, you gotta love the Wiggler, very fun. Which brings us to the Fuzzy. So the Fuzzies make their first appearance in a mainline 3D Mario title with Galaxy 2, where ironically they only appear in 2D sections, maintaining their role as erratic, inky black, odd-eyed masses that follow along set paths as a more interesting coat of paint over what are, again, very simple moving hitboxes traveling short distances from A to B, only actually able to be defeated with the spin drill in their second appearance in Flipsville Galaxy, where they appear throughout some of these rooms in the Silver Star and Purple Coin missions, providing a minor threat to your gravity flipping traversal here, as well as on these poles in Honeybloom, which do the same. So, you know, don't get me wrong, I actually do love the Fuzzies designs. They are the perfect oddball enemies to throw into any Mario game, but they really do nothing special here and barely appear. So kind of just a meh inclusion, sadly. So yeah, low C for the Fuzzies. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. So next up we have the supermassive enemies, of which there are 6. The Goomba, Paragoomba, Piranha Plant, Thwomp, Koopa, and Wiggler, all blown up to an incredible size, who, with the exception of the Supermassive / Grand Goomba, who already makes an appearance in the prologue mission of Gateway Galaxy in Galaxy 1, are exclusive to Supermassive Galaxy in Galaxy 2, where, alongside the comically large Mario bricks and pipes and coins and stuff, they are here to ask, what if small thing but big. And yeah, I guess if you're into that. I don't know, Supermassive's always felt kind of flat for me, but even then, the gigantified enemies are definitely its highlight. Now, for the most part, these guys do function identically to their regular, appropriately sized counterparts, literally being scaled up versions of them, which is both jarring and amusing, because you'll come across this behemoth of a Goomba, for example, only for it to get blindsided with a single spin attack and then booted into the air like nothing all the same, albeit with nicer, weightier animations and sound effects to go along with that. But even despite that, the wow factor is still tangible and undeniable for all of these guys, so I'll just go through them each one by one. Starting with the Goomba, who gets bonus points also for appearing at the beginning of Galaxy 1, which immediately makes a great impression and is there too a blast to kick around with bizarre ease. Yeah, low A tier. And then we have the Supermassive Para Goomba, who is basically the same story, equally amusing to kick into a spinning grounded trance, and there are a few more of them, so similarly to the regular variants, a spot right beside them, I guess, one below this time though for lack of Gateway Galaxy and novelty points. And then we have the Supermassive Koopas, who are just okay for me. Ignoring the gimmick, they are kind of a slog to take out on repeat playthroughs, and yeah, infinite one-ups trick exists, that's cool, I guess. But all these guys do is walk around, shepherding you in between them as you take them out one by one with the spin drill, so I don't know, upper C tier. And then we have these Supermassive Piranha Plants, who appear in their pipe-bound forms only here, burrowing in and out of its dirt interior as giant obstacles, and they are similarly mediocre for me. A bit awkward to tiptoe around and can just be a short waiting game, again, if you're going to get past when they're underground. Same level as the Koopas for me, slightly better though. But then we have the Supermassive Thwomps, who I think are great. These Thwomps are colossal here and benefit a ton from the size increase. Being able to wall jump up their sides as the camera slowly pans up, their enormous size lets you soak up the scale even more. And it feels like the sky is falling as you're racing underneath them. They are certainly the most intimidating of the Supermassives, so a low A as well. Huge improvement. And then finally, we have the Supermassive Wigglers, coming again in both peaceful and hostile states as they march and storm the inside of the final tunnel section of the galaxy here, making the whole thing feel like crossy roads on steroids as you carefully leap past a bustling motorway of Wigglers just stomping past you, making for a really memorable set piece to cap off the stage. And the Supermassive Wigglers probably fall somewhere in lower A tier as well for me, probably also around the Supermassive Goombas level. Not quite on par with the regular Wiggler for me though. The larger indestructible scale and inevitably fixed paths don't offer quite as much fun in approaching them, which leads us on to the Kleptoad. So the Kleptoads are a really fascinating, bizarre one-off enemy, exclusive to just one secret planetoid, this Hungry Luma planetoid for the hidden Silver Stars in Hightail Falls mission. A planet crawling with these little creatures, the tiny gloved frogmen of Hightail Falls, the Kleptoads. And I love these guys. For as briefly and obscurely as they appear, possibly in a sub-area tons of players might not even see, let alone remember, their behavior is surprisingly elaborate and unique. The Kleptoads, as their name states, are obsessed with things, with stealing things. They carry around and compete for the possession of the silver stars and coins on the planet, which they hold over their heads as they scamper around here, eyes lit up with a frenzied obsession. And when you take them out and they drop their goodies, any other nearby Kleptoads will notice the now available item and try to beat you to it, nabbing the item and running away to keep it for themselves. The whole planet swarming with these little amphibian pickpocketing kleptomaniacs. And yeah, I really don't know what to say other than I just love these guys. They ooze charm as they desperately scramble to get their mittens on whatever shiny goodie they can, as they then hoard it for themselves, hopping and running around the planet drunk with power. And oddly enough, I think they might be the only enemy that drops nothing on defeat, as in no actual star bits or coins from within themselves. Perhaps their obsession with material goods is a compensation for their hollow, greed-ridden souls. Or maybe they are just silly little frog people tucked away so discreetly into this irrelevant area even the devs forgot to add a drop to them. This is literally the Kleptoad's only appearance in Mario ever, and I think that was a sore mistake. I love how these guys play, and their visual design is just simplicity perfected. Is this S tier? Is this S tier? Yeah. This is S tier, a genuine S tier for me. I love these guys. Love me a good Kleptoad. Yeah, they're way up there. W Klepto. Which leads us on to the Golden Chomp. So, one lone Chomp stained gold by the radiance of the power star it contains can be found here in Gusty Garden Galaxy, rolling around this caterpillar-shaped planet with a bunch of gem boulders, able to be smashed through with the rainbow star to collect its power star, kind of just serving as the ultimate dopamine hit, as well as an unusual and aesthetically pleasing neat little spectacle in passing, I guess, where it then reappears as the final challenge in Galaxy 2's Chomp Works Galaxy, with an entire like on-rails marble run obstacle course being built around it for you to manipulate and control as you assist the Golden Chomp along its path unobstructed, to reach the end safely and break open and reveal its star, continuously re-emerging from the fiery depths of what I guess is the forge of the Golden Chomp here. A task that ramps up in difficulty tenfold with the cosmic clone variation of it later on. And to be honest, guiding the Golden Chomp through Chomp Works is pretty fun, or at least is a memorable one-time gimmick, I guess. And the Chomp itself is just the definitive novelty enemy, you know, very sparkly, very shiny. So yeah, feeling a high B with this thing. It's pretty cool. Which brings us to the Lakitu. So yeah, the Lakitus are here, I guess, making their first and most prominent appearance in Yoshi Star Galaxy as they swarm the galaxy with spinies at the behest of King Lakitu, of course, and reappearing later on over the tropical sands of Starshine Beach, where, as you could guess, they hover around in their smiley clouds, tossing out spinies to attack you as they just kind of spectate the chaos. And they are pretty easily defeated here. When flying directly over the ground, you can just spin attack or eat their clouds with Yoshi and then finish them off like anything else once they've tumbled down. Or in any case, you can fire back one of their own spinies and snipe them out of their clouds, which is way more fun. So yeah, that's really it with the Lakitus. They're just pretty happy, fun, classic Mario enemies. So yeah, I'm feeling a decent mid-B for these guys. Pretty elaborate, you know, shooting them out of the sky will never get old, and I like summoner enemies of any kind, so yeah, mid-B. And so next up is the Sentry Garage, the most complex and multifunctional yet only once used weapon of the Topman tribe, a fusion of the Spring Volt and the Spring Topman, this green robot installed into the summit of Boy Base. You can unload waves of 4 top minis to harass you, while also functioning as a spring to boost you upwards to the final Pokeball planet once you've jumped on its head. Honestly, a completely unthreatening enemy, but at least it gives a bit of sentience to what easily could have otherwise been, again, an inanimate springboard or trampoline. I really don't like how the platform you encounter it on has guardrails, though it just completely ruins the only threat here being the top minis bouncing you around when you can't even be pushed off a ledge or anything. Genuinely zero threat. But still, it's a nice embellishment, and I do like the Topman tribe's aesthetic, so yeah, mid to low C, I think it probably is in like Spine Cone, Galactic Tornado territory. Which leads us on to the Ring Beamer. So these again are just another indestructible golden metallic shockwave generator, this time spiked and therefore damaging to touch, making for a bit more difficulty when stationed amid narrower pathways and now sending out their wide circular shockwaves on flat planes, not wrapping around planetoids. And they are probably just going to place right alongside the other two, being marginally better due to cooler spike design and featuring in more difficult configurations like over flip panels with Rocktos in Grandmaster Galaxy, or being spread around with their shockwaves all overlapping each other across this vast platform in Dreadnought Galaxy. So yeah, similar, like pretty average mid C tier placement for objectively solid mechanics but pretty boring design. They literally should have just slapped 2 little eyes on this thing and called it a Topman. It genuinely would have done wonders for it. But next we have the Romp. The Romps are these rolling, smiling stone cylinders found only barreling down this progressively narrower quicksand slope towards the end of Slip Sand Galaxy and before your duel with my glorious King Squizzard, where 18 of them come rolling down in different configurations and you have to slide side to side to avoid them brutally flattening and insta-killing you beneath them. In what was, for like 9-year-old me, a nightmarishly difficult section for some reason. Although I don't struggle with it now, the sheer slipperiness of the sliding here still takes a minute to get used to, and these lumbering heavy stone romps just amplify that challenge as they force you left and right to try and fit through the gaps between them. Now, their designs aren't anything to write home about. They are the most boring of the Womp family to me visually, but mechanically they definitely work and make for a very memorable and concentration requiring one-off appearance here in Slip Sand, so they probably place around mid to low B for me. A few spots over the Bomp if I may. And next is Mikey Mine. So the Mikey Mines are these green and gold-plated chain-bound naval mine enemies found installed around Deep Dark Galaxy's chambers, as well as unchained obstacles in this more abstract 2D section of Cosmic Cove Galaxy, crowding around and guarding shipwrecks or moving vertically along chains and set paths as pretty simple, basic hitbox enemies, exploding on contact where they'll then take a moment to power back up. And I do like how they stay dormant until approached, where they'll then activate, staring you down with their glowing eyes and beeping radar noises. And did anyone else think that like spiked underwater mines chained to the seafloor were going to be a much bigger part of life than they've ended up to be? I don't know, I have a soft spot for spiked underwater mines. Especially sentient video game ones. But this is a pretty simple enemy. It does contribute to the cautious on-edge descent through Deep Dark alongside the Jammy Fish, and we've been talking about Deep Dark every two enemies in this video. I have no clue what's going on with that. But yeah, they do contribute to that cautious on-edge descent through Deep Dark alongside the Jammy Fish, so you can't really complain, you know. I think strong mid-C tier, even if just for the aesthetics. Which leads us on to the Porcupuffer. So the spiny Cheep Cheep or Porcupuffer makes only a single appearance in either Galaxy game. Firstly, in Drip Drop Galaxy, where a pair of them are locked away in sunken chests as a nasty surprise should you open them unknowingly. And secondly, in Cosmic Cove Galaxy, where one lone Porcupuffer is simply just here in the waters as you swim towards the actual main cove area. The little beaked purple Porcupuffer puffing up from its smaller state into its proper, full, swollen, spiked state before rushing towards you and then just fizzling out and disappearing at the tail end of its little kamikaze attack. Yeah, there's not much more to it than that. A pretty odd one-off encounter for each game, to be honest, but I don't even, I really don't even know what to say about this thing. It's okay. It's okay, I guess. Yeah, probably just somewhere in C tier. I don't fucking know. Yeah, sure, you can go there. And next we have the Spiny Piranha Plant. The larger, spiky-stalked, purple Spiny Piranha Plant is a much rarer, more monstrous variant of the Piranha Plant who is invulnerable to physical attacks until after it slammed its head at you. A heavy attack with huge wind-up, but also huge recovery time, leaving it grounded and susceptible to a flattening stomp, or alternatively by walloping it with surrounding plant bulbs or burning through it with fireballs. And honestly, I do really like these guys. To a lesser extent than the Pokies, they also have that mini-boss vibe with a larger, more intimidating stature than the Piranha Plant and a briefer, more precise window for attack. They are very predictable and easy to punish though, so probably placed towards the very bottom of B. But the Spiny Piranha Plant then sees itself getting an even more monstrous, more intimidating, pitch-black, red-spiked mega evolution in the Prickly Piranha Plant, who embodies those mini-boss vibes even truer, wielding the same head-slamming moveset but now invulnerable to physical attacks at all times, clad in damaging spikes. And so your method of attack is solely by walloping the neighboring bulb plant into it while it's grounded, a slightly more demanding and accurate attack with a lot more impact, which I do prefer. Not to mention the undeniably sick design, which I have never forgotten ever since my very first playthroughs encountering this thing as a kid. But yeah, this thing has to place A tier for me, even if only for childish, dumb, cool factor, but it is also pretty fun to deal with, so yeah, a super solid enemy for me. It's a shame it only appeared once though, but yeah, mid A tier, super cool. And next up are the Hammer and the Boomerang Bros. So the Hammer and the Boomerang Bros function identically, bar of course their differing projectiles and a green and blue color scheme respectively. Both bros are leaping around their areas to toss out 2 projectiles in quick succession before leaping over to another spot to do the same, taking 2 hits to defeat, bar a ground pound of course, 1 stomp or spin attack to topple them over onto their backs, and a second to finish them off. And in my opinion, both bros are definitely above average enemies, but my personal favorite has to go to the Boomerang Bro, simply because this projectile being bound to a linear horizontal path just presents more of a challenge to me than the vertical arc of the Hammer, which really isn't as much of a nightmare as it is in the 2D titles here. Adding the fact that these guys are most often in groups, and either flavor can give you a real good challenge, but the Boomerang just hits the spot more for me. 2 great enemies here though, also a joy to spit back their shots with Yoshi. So yeah, super solid upper B tier for both, maybe even a lower A for the Boomerang Bro though. Yeah, honestly, Boomerang Bro goes in lower A. but still, big respect. Big respect to the hammer, bro. You're going in upper tier. And next we have the electricity shooter. So yeah, the electricity variant of the 3 shooter enemies. This floating yellow nozzle turret shooting out zapping balls of electricity that home in on you as they travel. Appearing solely in this ending Polestar section of Space Storm Galaxy, where they dot the stormy skies alongside a minefield of big amps until a final electrifying crescendo as you pull through a corridor of them, blasting out their projectiles as you race to the star. And yeah, I'm happy to say, again, I much prefer these to the water shooters, and I much prefer them to the fire shooters too. I am still bored by their design, and I think some kind of Lakitu variant could have worked perfectly here, but they obviously weren't made to impress in that department, and the homing electricity projectiles are genuinely a threat and make this super fluid, like I said, minefield of a Polestar section way more engaging, as you have to keep moving and calculating your path around so many hitboxes in mere seconds as they literally chase you down. Don't get me wrong, these are a fairly generic and uninteresting enemy aesthetically, but they fulfill their purpose to a T for me, and supercharged electricity is just cooler than, you know, bubbles and fire. So yeah, high C for sure, high C. Which leads us on to the pinheads. So in the same vein as the gummits, the pinheads are another helpless stationary creature the chimp uses as targets to eliminate for points in one of his challenges. This time in his secret bowling challenge in Melty Monster Galaxy, where 9 bowling alleys appear in succession, each with a group of these beady-eyed little bowling pinheads arranged on the other side of different blue platforms for you to bowl and clatter into with the rock mushroom, with each pinhead awarding you 100 points on defeat and the goal total of 5,000 points, requiring you to knock down at least 50 of them to win. The pinheads literally trembling with fear as you come charging into them. So, you know, the chimp seems like a real wholesome guy. And the pinheads also make one single appearance halfway through Boulder Bowl Galaxy way earlier in the game, so yeah, I don't know, bonus points for that, I guess. Yeah, I have to admit, as far as Galaxy minigames go, this is definitely one of the best for me. Morbid as it is, the pinheads are a blast to, well, yeah, blast through and amass points, and they are just colorful, cutesy, niche little critters. So, you know, you can't be too harsh on these guys. The gimmick they come along with is super fun, so I don't know, upper C tier, I guess. And next we have the Sentry Beam. So I actually quite like the Sentry Beam, this invincible little tin can robot hovering by a tiny propeller, ripping through the ground with these surprisingly fast disintegrating laser beams. They are simple, unkillable, genuinely dangerous enemies that hover around you and produce these long, far-reaching momentary hitboxes for you to avoid as you flip switches or spring around. So yeah, they go pretty hard in my opinion. Yeah, solid mid-B tier for me. And so next we have the Undergrunt Gunner. So yeah, the blue-furred turret operatives of the Undergrunts return in Galaxy 2, no longer as boss fights but as smaller hovering enemies, seated in these airborne cannons firing away at you with bullet bills over these slow-moving platforms, providing ammunition for you to fire at glass cages for rewards or to blast back at them to destroy them with Yoshi. And then they do also make a fleeting appearance in this last frantic section in Fleet Glide Galaxy, where they're hurling a bunch of cannonballs out at you, which is a neat little embellishment to cap off the wild rush that is this stage. And overall, they are in theory great. I really like the idea of having to just survive an onslaught of homing projectiles, but their fire rate in Fearsome Fleet is terrible. It's comically slow, to the point there is almost zero time where spitting their rockets back at them and dodging the next incoming ones even overlap, so you can kind of just chill out here until I guess the mines further in can distract from that a bit, but still, you know, cool idea. I like to see some more Undergrunt reps, so yeah, a welcome addition, just not as threatening as I think they should be, so solid low B. Which brings us to the Red Koopa Trooper, of which there is only one. This Red Koopa in Sea Slide Galaxy, marching around in a circle across this boardwalk, the only of his kind found throughout the entire duology, the entire universe. Lonely yet unperturbed by his solitude, a stern look on his face as he endlessly repeats this simple, boring loop ad infinitum, handily supplying us with a red shell upon defeat, which homes in on any target you throw it at and allows you to swim even faster again. So a great and objective yet criminally underused upgrade to the regular old green Koopa. Love this guy, what a guy. Bro just walking around all shelled up. Bro is determined. Enough to bump him up to A tier for me, actually. The upgrade in swim speed is much appreciated. plus bonus points for novelty. And so now we have the Spindleburr. So this is just another bafflingly underused obscure one-off enemy anomaly. The Spindleburrs are these swollen thorned relatives to the common stretchy bulb plant that you usually use to wallop into enemies, but this time they are sentient. And they want to do the walloping themselves. They want to inflict that pain onto you. They are sadly bound to only this final 2D section inside a giant hollowed out tree trunk in the Honeybloom Galaxy, which is actually packed with trap dragons as well, making for a surprisingly dangerous little area. And yeah, I wish Spindleburrs appeared more. I really wish they appeared in 3D. They wind up, sparkle for a moment, and then come violently lunging at you. And it's not rare for these things to just barely graze past or even actually clip you as you're building up speed with B Mario here. With a bit of a further reach and more appearances, these things could have gone a long way, I think. But yeah, for what they are, bizarrely kept to this one area, I definitely do still appreciate them. So, good enemy. Fun enemy, low B. And so next up are the Wimps. So the Wimps are the itty bitty goo goo gaga drooling one-toothed stubby limbed baby Womps who the Womp King summons amidst your duel with him. The Wimps conjuring up around his feet before waddling towards you to attempt a face-planting attack of their own, crumbling into rubble afterwards regardless of their success. Also just being mercilessly and carelessly stomped through and massacred by the Womp King as he himself waddles towards you alongside them. So yeah, what an inspiring leader. And even in their little groups, the Wimps aren't too much of a threat and can simply be outrun. But as I mentioned in my boss ranking, they can synergize quite well with the Womp King's mightier jumping foot stomp attack, as if you mistime your jump and get caught by the shockwave from that, you'll be stunned and locked in place as a swarm of Wimps come piling onto you. So whether or not the devs foresaw that as a nice combo possibility or not, we're going to give them some bonus points for that. And in general, it is really nice to see a one-off enemy variant appear solely for a boss fight. You really don't see it often, so it's a big boost to this already epic encounter. And I'm not sure quite how much more that novelty can carry them, but I would place the Wimps fairly highly anyway. They are fun, you know, maybe around Romp, Flaptack territory, you know, mid-B tier. And next is the Astro Goomba. Now, this is a very solid Goomba variant in my opinion, seeing the cardinal flaw of the Goomba, its stompable top, remedied by a stomp-proof unbreakable helmet, meaning 2 steps are now required to defeat it. Firstly, a spin attack to work around its overhead invincibility, flipping it over to allow for secondly a follow-up foot stomp, or alternatively just the spin attack in the direction of a hole or pit to send them barreling off stage. So yeah, this screams B tier for me. Nothing extraordinary, but just a neat, fun addition to any galaxy. It requires a bit more commitment than your average Goomba, along with those soul-piercing, glowing eyes, making for a novel enough, but nowhere near as iconic Goomba design. So yeah, maybe like Undergrunt territory. Which leads us on to the Mega Boo. So the Mega Boo of Haunty Hall's Galaxy, flanked on either side by 2 Big Boos, makes just 2 appearances at the beginning and end of the mission, sneaking down the creepy corridor where it manifests up out of the ghostly air to chase down and pursue you from behind as you traverse the stage. This giant enclosing death wall just pressuring you forward and keeping you on your toes for all of like 10 seconds. Yeah, I'm always surprised by just how brief the actual chase sequence with this thing is. It's one empty pathway towards the start, but that's kind of forgivable as you're still in awe at the fact that a giant boo has just appeared. And then once again towards the end, where you're expecting a lengthier platforming stretch as the culmination of the mission as it inches closer and closer, and then oh, that's the star. Okay, but yeah, this thing is sorely underused. It is still cute how it gets shy when looked back at though, but even then, couldn't we have gotten even a slight cosmetic difference with it, like Boo-Hemoth from New Super 2 or Boo-Lossus from Luigi's Mansion look way cooler than this just vanilla scaled up Boo model, but you know, still, it is a fun inclusion. I'm more frustrated with its brevity than anything, so yeah, mid-B, I guess, mid-B. And so next we have Galaxy 2's Trap Dragon. So the Trap Dragons of Honeybloom and Honey Hop Galaxy are basically just floating platforms that try to eat you if you stand on them for too long. From the second you step on one of these things, they trigger and begin winding up this swallowing attack, wrapping you up in their mouths before spitting you back out with 1 health point less than you went in with. Probably being some relative of the Piranha Plant as well, with their polka-dotted floral exterior and white lips. And these do work pretty well. They're your only path forward forward over watery sections as B Mario, or the Spindle Burr 2D section again, and force you to be quick on your feet. Obviously, instantly forcing a sense of urgency on you as you hurry past them to avoid being chewed up. So yeah, that's the Trap Dragon. Kind of forgettable, but very functional enemy. So, I don't know, low C, I guess. Yeah, it's the fucking Trap Dragon. And next up is the Rocky Wrench. The bandanaed wrench-lobbing department of the Undergrunt Militia. The Rocky Wrenches can be found inside these little bunkers, emerging out of and retreating into them the closer you get. Flinging their wrenches at you from a distance before hiding away and disengaging as you get close, requiring you to pop a starbit shot at them or ground pound the surrounding area from a mid-distance to topple over and stun them, allowing for an actual point-blank finishing attack. Now, I do prefer the traditional goggle-wearing Rocky Wrench design, but this isn't that bad of a downgrade for me. They do look kind of plain, but I think make up for it with their slightly more elaborate than average two-step method of defeat, being a threat from a distance and fitting in perfectly amidst the metallic industrial space stationery of Battle Rock and Dreadnought Galaxy, or the actual Undergrunt takeover of Gusty Garden, of course. So yeah, overall pretty solid, nothing special, but a decent upper C. You know, C tier the movie continues. Although he says that, but next up, I think we've got a high ranking on our hands here. Next up, we have the Mattermouth. Now, the Mattermouths are just an objectively brilliant enemy that make great use of a really interesting gimmick, in my opinion. They are these disembodied, eternally munching skeletal heads, I guess some dark matter-imbued relative of the Dry Bones family, found devouring their way through the slowly regenerating ghostly carpets of Haunty Hall's galaxy and Bowser's lava lair, literally destroying the very ground you play on as they trail around, constantly unpredictably rearranging where you can and can't step, rendering huge portions of the ground bottomless pits. And I just think the visual of the stage vanishing around you in these twisting, turning patterns is amazing, and it's a super engaging gimmick they executed perfectly with these guys. Gives you no opportunity to haphazardly hop around with them. You have to plan out your route constantly and intentionally. Not to mention attacking them actually can redirect them in the opposite direction. And again, I love the dry aesthetic of enemies. Imbuing that with dark matter splattering magic is a recipe for success with any enemy mechanic. And in the files of Galaxy 2, Mattermouths are known as Baku Baku, and there exists also a removed boss Baku Baku entry in the file, suggesting that there was at one point going to be a boss version of the Mattermouths, which, if that was the case, thank God they scrapped that and we got a second Mandibug stack instead. But yeah, I love these guys, you know, I love these guys. They deserve a really high placement, in my opinion, in the upper band of A tier easily. You know, just kind of freely waltzing right on up there, munching their way up there. But I'm tempted by S, but I don't know if they're quite there. I really don't think they are, but yeah, great enemy, super, super good. Which leads us on to the Grinder. So the Grinders appear in Galaxy 2 as these circular buzzsaws you can find slicing and carving through wooden plank planetoids in Puzzle Plank and Rolling Masterpiece Galaxy, sawing through the stage as parts fall into and out of place, which is a really fun, dynamic stage gimmick to me. It goes a long way in creating a sense of urgency as you hurry along the course, outrunning the stage as it literally falls away beneath your feet or comes together before you. Of course, it is a lifeless steel buzzsaw, so, you know, not too much to speak of character-wise. Maybe they could have added an eye in the center, like the wheelie enemies in Kirby, for at least a little semblance of personality here, but, hey, you know, pretty sure they achieved what they set out to do with these things, so you can't complain. But probably a high C. C tier the movie. Which brings us to the Skeeter. So the Skeeter makes its return in Galaxy 2 with a massively revamped design. Now this purple four-legged flat-footed disc bug you can find sliding over the waters of Cosmic Cove and Starshine Beach and Throwback Galaxy and whatnot, where it'll just kind of meander around until you get close enough for it to come after you, moving in bursts and able to be taken out with the usual spin attack or stomp means. And yeah, they are another appreciated, fairly basic fodder enemy. It's definitely cool to have an enemy specifically for the surface of the water, and they are fun enough to gobble up with Yoshi, so probably feeling a high C for these guys, a high C for these guys, like a Mecha Koopa Spoing territory, I guess. Just super solid, fun Mario enemy. C tier the movie. And so now we have the Chomp Pups, who I do also really like. In Galaxy 2, they're a bit more common, rolling around circular paths and able to be picked off with bulb plants, which is actually pretty fun. Otherwise being indestructible, way smaller, but also quicker mini toy-scale replicas of their giant predecessors. However, their initial appearance in Galaxy 1, in Dreadnought Galaxy, with this particular sloped pachinko machine-ass section overlaid across 2 sets of flip switch panels, is absolutely brilliant. And a perfect use of the Chomp Pup. Really wish they just kept on developing this idea, because it demands constant movement and precision as you weave between waves of Chomp Pups as they come cascading down the slope, continuously popping out of their little dog kennels in a tragically brief but super engaging little tile switching minigame here. For this appearance alone, I'd rank them really high, and their reappearance in Sky Station and Chomp Works in Galaxy 2 is just icing on the cake. So I'm not going to glaze too hard, but you know, solid high B, low A for me. They are cute but deadly. And so now we have our final thwomp relative. We have the Flomp. Another Galaxy 2 original Thwomp variant here. The Flomps are these little sentient stone platforms, appearing in configurations over lava or the final cosmic expanse of Grandmaster Galaxy, encased in traditional Bowser-esque green and gold spiked plating, who, much alike the Thwomp, periodically switch between a resting, stoic face and an enraged, wide-eyed, angry face, where flipping is now added to the Thwomp family repertoire, making a rattling sound every few seconds before quickly flipping over and throwing you into the air if you're stood on them, likely straight into lava if you're not careful. Working very well in these little configurations, with different ones rattling off at different times, making you second guess each hop between them. But you do actually retain a surprising amount of control in the air when flipped off with these guys, and they don't deal damage themselves, so you can just kind of get away with a few slip-ups here and there, but still, yeah, they're a decent obstacle, I guess. Yeah, it's fun to see another pretty obscure Thwomp variant, so yeah. Upper mid-C tier for me. Which brings us to the Clam, or Clampy as he may be called. So the Clam of Mario Galaxy appears only in Galaxy 1's Beach Ball Galaxy and Galaxy 2's Starshine Beach Galaxy, where it rests on the seabed, prying open its iridescent maw every few seconds before snapping it back shut again, the player needing to time their entry well enough to retrieve whatever item it's got stowed away without getting chomped down on. And while this guy is near enough inconsequential to the game, especially in Galaxy 2, where I'm pretty sure he fucking only contains a coin, which is just not worth it at all, he is still just a microscopic net positive to Galaxy, adding a tiny bit more life and color to these underwater sections. So you're only ever going to interact with him once per playthrough for a couple seconds at most, but yeah, you know, he's nothing special at all. And what can I even say? Bro is a clam. Bro is a clam. Bro's clamming around. I liked it when he said it's clamming time and he started clamming everywhere. So yeah, low C tier. C tier stands for clam. Which brings us to the penultimate enemy of this entire ranking, who is not really suiting to the climax of the situation. This is such a mundane enemy, but it's the Spring Volt. So the Spring Volt is a fusion of the Pulse Beam and the Spring Topman, and the blending of their mechanics does work. They're these purple-plated Topmen fixed into the ground who generate shockwaves in bursts of 3 again. With all these same core mechanical positives of the jump mandating shockwaves. Again, you are Jumpman, you know, the entire game is made for this. As well as the player now, without exception, needing to close the distance across any shockwaves to their origin point to bust out the trampoline from inside the Spring Vault to advance upward. And so this is just a fundamentally sound, additional, cool little Mario droid. You know, it makes an especially good impression in Flip Switch Galaxy, where you are literally forced to cover ground around it without needing to deactivate it, forcing you to engage with its shockwaves while still being attentive with your jump landings as not to deactivate any panels. But then sometimes it does just kind of appear deactivated solely as a trampoline with no offense at all. So yeah, that is just kind of there as well, but mostly it is good. So yeah, very low B. No, upper C. I like the Spring Vault, you know, upper C. Which leads us to the ultimate enemy of the ranking, the final enemy of all 1.25 billion gorillion enemies in this video. Man, I really hope someone's fucking watching this. Finally, we have the Cosmic Clone. So I do prefer the Cosmic Clones to Cosmic Luigi. Yes, I think I do. I think they could even break into S tier, actually. So the Cosmic Clones make a ton of appearances across Galaxy 2, both as just a surprise event that triggers at certain planetoids where the Cosmic Clones will begin spawning in until you fulfill a certain objective, like matching all the flip switch panels or shattering a crystal to advance to the next area. Or, of course, more prominently and memorably, they feature in their own entire stars as a prankster comet variant. The Cosmic Clones themselves, an infinitely spawning single file line of these shadowy crimson duplicates of Mario with their glowing yellow eyes who mimic every movement you make just a second or two behind you, constantly chasing you down to literally your exact location, meaning you can't take even a brief moment to rest or recollect yourself here, lest you be swarmed over and destroyed by a mass of cosmic clonery. And I think these guys epitomize the sense of urgency and pressure that I place such a high value on with enemies and bosses in these games. They are literally an overflowing pursuit of perfect copies, endlessly zoning in on you, endlessly chasing you down, making for so many super tense, crowded, just barely survivable moments like their appearances in Mario Squared or Chomp Rex Galaxy. And I think their briefer appearances midway through missions make for really nice sudden surprise attacks, breaking up the pacing of a stage. And overall, there's never a moment of frustration or boredom with these guys for me. They force you to perfect your movements and constantly consider your plan of action in real time. No backtracking or hesitation allowed, you know. If they get you, it was your fault. So yeah, super solid S tier for me. There's no question about it. Super solid S tier. Really awesome. Really awesome enemy. What a great way to cap off the list, eh, guys? Which means the tier list on the screen right now is the tier list. This is Lugaland's every Mario Galaxy enemy tier list, or actually this is a slightly tweaked version, and I mean very minorly tweaked. This is like 7 or 8 enemies slightly jiggled around because I just recorded a whole section like going through it like I promised, and for some reason the footage is just completely gone. So yeah, this is actually the finished version, but there's some very minor tweaks. Like I ordered S, you know, like I moved the Octoboo and the Digger up a bit. I put the Tox Box over the Octoombas. I put the Octoombas over a few more enemies. You know, I think I overrated the Bomboo. I think I overrated Cosmic Mario a lot. He goes further down into B. And oh yeah, this is the big one. The Pup Dozers, I think I was way too harsh on. The Pup Dozers are upper C, in my opinion. I don't know why I shit on them so much. I actually quite like the Pup Dozers, and I just kept thinking that the whole video. Afterwards, so Pup Dozers go up. I could see the case for B. I really could see the case for B, but for me, they're just not that fun to engage with, and the design is kind of just whatever. But yeah, the Pup Dozers, I was too harsh on them. They go up a bit. But for now, all I can say is it's fucking 2 AM, and yeah, for as long as this video is, it actually only took me like a week to make, not including the script. The script I wrote over the scripts and organizing all my thoughts, that I did over the course of maybe a week or two. But the actual, I've got something in my eye, the actual video, like the recording, the editing, everything, I've done in about the course of 7 days, and I don't think I've gone to sleep before 4 AM on any of those days. So it's been a real heavy production process, that's for sure. But I hope the video came out well. I'm actually very impressed with it. I'm very happy with it. Very proud, considering how much of a cram it really was. But yeah, that means there's only one thing left to do. Thank my members. So big thank you to SneezeBot8000, the OG. Bro is the OG. We said it last time. Bro's the OG. Thank you for the big membership, my good friend, and let us know some of your takes in the comments below, as I would like to see too, from Just Sebi255, or Sebi I should say. Thanks for the big membership, my friend. Hope you enjoyed the watch. Please tell me your takes. Tell us your takes in the comments too. I remember last time we did a Galaxy ranking, you filled me in on your very opinionated, very mighty and righteous, fiery Dino Piranha opinion, I think it was. So come on, let's see it. Let's see your takes. Any disagreements, any hot takes? I'm sure there's plenty. I'm sure this is quite a divisive set of opinions I've put out today. And thank you to Koi13. Bro's just in the shadows. Bro's low-key he is not chalant. He is not chalant. Bro's in the shadows. Bro is, what the fuck am I saying? So yeah, big thank you to Koi13. Hope you enjoyed the watch, my friend. And big thank you to new member alert, Spagoni. Thank you for the big membership. You know we love to see it. Bro is, he's a loyalist. He's a legend. Oh, him? Is that a king? No, that's a legend. So yeah, thank you for the big membership, my friend. Look forward to your poem in the comment. Well, not poem. Tell us about your Galaxy Enemy opinions. And finally, a big thank you to another new member. No. Daddy, no. You love to see it. Big no. Thank you for your loyal patronage, my friend. See you soon in the hot tub that we are going to win very soon. And you know what I mean. So yeah, that was me, Lugalan, ranking every Mario Galaxy enemy on a tier list I made myself. Please do let me and everyone else know, which I hope is more than 1,000 fucking people, your own Mario Galaxy enemy takes, hot takes, opinions. Yeah, and whatever you thought about the video, if you liked it or hated it, couldn't stand it or loved it, please let me know. I love comments. Like and subscribe if you want, that's cool, but please leave a comment. That's the best thing you can do. I love reading them all. And yeah, I think that's about it. That's all I have to say. Like I said, it's 2 AM, so I've got nothing else to say other than that. Monthly uploads. I mean, this is one. This is a monthly upload. So monthly uploads are on. The prophecy was not false. The prophecy was true. Monthly uploads are here. So see you soon. Real soon, hopefully. And yeah. Troll face. Troll face. Yeah, I love the troll face.